Chapter 253. This night, Continent City was still in chaos. However, Ask the Heaven's Sword did not appear, nor did Underworld's Saber. Even though they did not appear, the people of Jianghu did not stop fighting. Up until now, many descendants of Ask the Heaven's Sword and Underworld Saber Saints' grandsons had died. However, what no one noticed was that on this night, there were suddenly many mysterious people with black masks on their faces. They came and went, but their martial arts had reached a frightening level. They came and went, vigilantly watching every corner of the city, waiting for Ask the Heaven's Sword or Underworld Saber to appear. Tonight there were no clouds for thousands of miles. Even though the moon was not full, it was still bright in the sky. In a corner that no one knew about, on a night like this, Ask the Heaven's Sword and Underworld Saber had secretly met. Under the moonlight, Dong Wushang, Luo Kedi, GMO, and Yin Butong were quietly sitting on a branch of a big pine tree like four squirrels having a meeting. "Have you really decided?" Dong Wushang asked seriously. "Yes." GMO nodded silently. "Perhaps our own big clans will also get involved in this matter," Dong Wushang said without the slightest bit of emotion. "So what?" GMO's face did not have its usual frivolous expression. Instead, it was a bit serious. With the appearance of Calamity Sword, the three heavens are already facing a reshuffle. If the G clan is destined to decline in this storm, it is fine if it is a bit earlier. However, if the G clan can use this opportunity to advance, I will be very happy. GMO's face was serious. Suddenly, he revealed a smile that did not know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "Plus, in this trial, my dear brother is the leader. Cough, cough, I suspect that even if this matter is confirmed, and we put the saber and sword in front of him, he won't even bat an eyelid." Luo Kedi and Yin Butong shrugged their shoulders. Dong Wushang almost burst out laughing as well. Unable to hold back his laughter, he said, "You're right. That brother of yours is indeed the only weirdo in the history of the three heavens. I can only roll my eyes at such a compliment." GMO sighed. "Although I know that you are speaking from the bottom of your heart, it is still somewhat unpleasant to hear. What I am most curious about is, why did your G clan allow your elder brother to become a Grand Duke? What I am even more curious about is, your elder brother is so lazy, how did he manage to cultivate to such a level? I'm still wondering why, I'm still wondering." Luo Kedi furrowed his brows, beaming with joy, his expression serious, as if he was discussing some academic issues. "What you should be wondering is, why is your mouth like a cesspit? Even if you block the entrance, you can't block the stench." GMO fiercely glared at him. Ji Butong laughed and fell down from the tree. He climbed up with difficulty and leaned against the tree trunk, laughing silently with a pained expression. Dong Wushang was helpless. It was simply impossible to discuss something with these guys in a serious manner. "Don't worry, your Dong family is also fine. Your elder brother Dong Wulei is also a person with a sense of propriety. Moreover, as far as I know, your elder brother's strength is outstanding. So you don't have to worry about anything," GMO comforted her. "But my elder brother is not necessarily the same." Luo Kedi frowned and sighed. "That bastard Luo Kua looks very calm on the surface, but let me tell you, it is all a disguise. That guy's temper is so bad that you can't even think about it. Once he goes crazy, it will be terrible. Don't we still have you?" GMO looked at Luo Kedi with disdain. "At the crucial moment, can't you remind us?" "Me? Remind? What if I ruin Boss's plan? Won't you guys skin me alive?" Luo Kedi cried out as if he had been wrong. "Then you make your own decision," Dong Wushang said. "But this time, Gu Duxing's Gu clan is destined to suffer a great loss. Mo Tianyin used them as spears. Moreover, Gu Yen Yang and Gu Yen Yu are both very happy and narrow-minded. The two brothers are also vying for power. That is the Gu clan's matter. Naturally, second brother Gu will worry about it. We don't care about that," the other three said in unison. "Besides, Gu Yen Yang and Gu Yen Yu have long been unhappy with them. If we just kill those two bastards..." I think Gu Du Xing will be very happy. He won't even shed a tear. Actually, Gu Du Xing must be very eager to personally cut off those 2 dog heads. Since that is the case, then we have to prepare. GMO looked at the sky and said, When the moon is bright, the time has come. Dong Wushang nodded deeply. Luo Kadi suddenly thought of something. He suddenly hugged his stomach and laughed silently. Even tears came out of his eyes. What are you thinking about? Dong Wushang was very depressed. This guy was simply crazy. I am thinking about the names of the 2 Dong brothers. Oh, my mother! Oh, Luo Kadi rubbed his stomach. Dong Wushang was very curious. What about our names? You and your brother Dong Wulei. Ha! Luo Kadi simply opened his mouth and laughed wildly. The 3 of them could clearly see Luo Kadi's tongue trembling and jumping in his mouth. What is it? GMO scratched his head. Listen. Dong Wulei, animal type. Oh, Luo Kadi was overjoyed. As for Jiang Wushang, it is even more meaningful. Animal type. Damn Dong Wushang, you. Even an animal type is on you. Before he finished speaking, Dong Wushang, who could not bear it any longer, punched out. Luo Kadi's laughter came to an abrupt end. He fell from the tree with a face full of blooming peach blossoms. Dong Wushang turned around with a murderous look. He looked at GMO and Miao Badong, who were about to laugh. He gritted his teeth and asked, Isn't it very funny? Not funny, not funny. GMO shook his head like a rattledrum. What is Luo Kadi saying? I don't understand a word. Miao Badong hurriedly nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Yes, I don't understand a word. Humph! Dong Wushang gritted his teeth and shouted. Get lost! GMO and Ian Badong climbed down the tree with sweat all over their foreheads. They left in the darkness of the night. From afar, they heard GMO's uncontrollable laughter. Animal type. This motherfucking second young master Luo is a genius. What a famous saying. Miao Butong's voice. Ha! Dong Wushang clenched his fist, and the sound of his joints cracking could be heard. But GMO and Miao Badong had already disappeared very quickly. Dong Wushang jumped down, grabbed Luo Kadi, who was about to escape, and gave him a beating. I was wrong, fourth brother, my dear fourth brother. I was really wrong, please be magnanimous. Ha! Oh, this is too funny. Luo Kadi cried out in pain and begged for mercy, but he could not help but laugh wildly. For a moment, he could not tell whether it was pain or pleasure. His whole body was trembling, and he could not tell whether it was from being beaten or laughing. This time, Dong Wushang mercilessly beat him to his heart's content. Every punch was heavy, and every punch hit flesh. The bright moon gradually rose to the top of their heads. The moon that was missing a corner was still bright in the sky. Suddenly, from a certain place in the city, a round beam of light suddenly shot out. It seemed to be in the shape of a sun, reflecting the moonlight in the sky, shining brightly. This beam of light was not very thick, only the thickness of a fist, but it was very condensed. Especially in the middle of the night, it was even more eye-catching. In an instant, countless night walkers discovered this strange phenomenon at the same time. They could not help but raise their heads to the night sky, watching with rapt attention. In the next moment, the situation suddenly changed again. Another arc of light rose into the sky. It crossed with the cylindrical beam of light, and suddenly the sky shone brightly, as if a sun and 2 moons had appeared at the same time. One moon, one crescent moon! In the silent night sky, 2 screams came from 2 places at the same time. Then, the 2 beams of light disappeared at the same time. Only a full moon was left in the sky. Complete silence. However, the strange scene just now was deeply imprinted in everyone's eyes. Most of them were astonished. What the hell is going on? At the same time, 2 white figures suddenly appeared. Under the combined moonlight, under the reflection of the white snow, these 2 snow-white figures were like immortals from the heavens, coming from the sky. When they arrived, the 2 people suddenly split into 2 directions without saying a word. Each of them had an extremely sharp fleeting sword chi, and rushed towards the direction where the two beams of light had appeared. Swordsmen. These two handsome young men were actually two swordsmen who had achieved great swordsmanship. The white figures flashed and disappeared instantly. Heaven and earth returned to silence. At the same time, dozens of faster black figures also rose and chased in these two directions. In the night sky, the sound of clothes fluttering in the wind could not be heard. Suddenly, dozens of crowns appeared in the night sky. All the people of the martial world who saw this scene felt cold all over. This was a stage that belonged exclusively to experts. At this moment, ordinary people with mediocre cultivation should not even think about it. It was best to retreat. Dozens of king-level experts? What the fuck is going on? Chu Yang's figure was like a bolt of lightning, turning into a white line in the sky, showing a sense of urgency. However, he only saw 3 black-clothed sovereigns when he arrived at the scene. Although his speed was fast, he still could not compare to the king-level experts. Chu Yang's eyes swept around, and then landed elegantly. His white clothes fluttered, and he landed in front of the 3 men in black. "Seniors, you're really fast." Chu Yang's gentle voice carried the shyness of a young man. He said softly and slowly, "Although I tried my best and was 1 step ahead, I still fell behind. Elder Chu is too polite." The 3 men were all in black, and they did not dare to be negligent. "Well, dare I ask the 3 seniors, did you discover anything after coming first?" Chu Yang asked seriously. Chapter 254. "I was just looking at those glowing things for fun, haha," Chu Yang said sincerely. "I have a little sister at home who loves these glowing things the most. I want to buy them for her to play with. I'm just a youngster. I'm sorry for making you laugh at me." "Little sister?" The 3 king-level masters rolled their eyes at the same time. Motherfucker, these lords of great clans are really out of the ordinary. They can lie without batting an eyelid. It's as normal as eating cabbage. Even this young man, who seemed to be in his 20s, had such an ability. "Yes, we were just looking at them for fun." "Ha!" The 3 king-level masters were naturally not stupid. Even though they belonged to 3 different clans, at this moment, they were surprisingly in sync. "Ha ha ha ha!" Everyone had a tacit understanding, but they all smiled at each other with their own ulterior motives. The sound of clothes fluttering in the air was heard as a few people landed. Even though their faces were covered, everyone knew that they must be familiar with each other to be able to arrive so quickly. "Did you find anything?" "Humph." The 3 king-level experts from before weren't as courteous to this newcomer as they were to Chu Yang, the Duke of Upper 3 Heavens. They ignored him and snorted. Then, each of them flew away. "Arrogant my ass!" One of the later masters spat and scolded. "Seeing that the 3 of you didn't fight, I know that you didn't see anything." His words were the truth. If there really was something, then the 3 king-level masters would have already fought to the death. "Yes. I will also go first." Chu Yang politely took the lead. He smiled and gave his greetings. Then, he took 2 steps back in a refined manner. Then, he leaped into the air and disappeared without a trace. "He really is the Duke of Upper 3 Heavens. There is nothing to say about his temperament." One of the king-level masters sighed. Immediately after, everyone's bodies shook and the crown in the sky also disappeared in an instant. At Heaven-reaching Tower, all the lords of Upper 3 Heavens were waiting, except for Ji Zhu, who was sleeping soundly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The masters who went out came back. Each of them had an anxious expression as they entered the Duke's room. Then, Heaven-reaching Tower suddenly became quiet. Everyone was nervously discussing something in their rooms. The light of the sun and moon? Sun and moon shining together? Ao Xian frowned. He stood up and paced back and forth. He muttered, "Could it be that it's not?" Several experts of the Ao clan were calmly sitting opposite him. Each and every one of them seemed to be racking their brains to recall something. "There's definitely no such person in the Asta Heavens Martial Saint. As for the Underworld Saber Saint, that is even more nonsense. Ao Sia-yun frowned and said, I always thought that this was King of Hell Chu's scheme. His purpose was to deal with the Wuqing Ro and delay Great Zhao's conquest of the world. However, this sun and moon shining together has made me suspicious. This subordinate thinks that this is still a bit deliberately mystifying. A king-level expert said, After all, this situation is too bizarre. How can a mere saber and a mere sword cause such a phenomenon? Just a saber and a sword? Ao Sia-yun laughed coldly. Where's the sword of calamity? Everyone was speechless. Investigate. Ao Sia-yun said slowly. Don't be in a hurry to make a move for now. However, we need to inform the clan through divine sense. Investigate all the ancient books. It's best if they are the only ones. Check if there are any abnormalities with the sun and moon shining together. He frowned slightly and said, I seem to have seen such records before. However, I can't remember clearly. Ao Sia-yun sighed. When it's time to use the books, I regret not having enough of them. Under his command, the 3 king-level experts immediately gathered together. They used their own divine sense to activate the spiritual sound transmission ball. This was the most advanced and expensive method of communication in the entire heaven-level continent. This was because the divine sense of 3 king-level experts couldn't activate it at all. However, it could clearly transmit important information at the first moment. Moreover, there was no error. If it was an ordinary clan in the upper 3 heavens, they probably wouldn't be able to use this method of communication even if they used all the power of the entire clan. Sun and moon shining together, there must be something fishy about this. Mo Tianyun said heavily. The moment he heard the report, he was sure that this matter was not so simple. The Duke of the upper 3 heavens has come personally. Moreover, there is such a phenomenon. It must not be something ordinary. Only Mo Tianyun was pacing slowly. There was a hint of doubt in his eyes. Could it be that we have all been deceived by Di Wuqing Ro? Mo Tianyun's way of thinking was completely different from Ao Sia-yun's. Ao Sia-yun's first thought was to verify it. However, Mo Tianyun's first thought was that he had been schemed against. Don't disturb me. Mo Tianyun fell into a chair. He rested his chin on his hands and fell into deep thought. The thing that Mo Tianyun was most proud of was that he had a photographic memory. He could remember any ancient book as long as he read it once. Even if he had forgotten it after a long time, he could still remember it as long as he put his mind to it. He sat for a long time. His frown deepened. However, all the ancient books of the clan that he had read since he was a child were all recorded in his mind. Just like a small stream, there is nothing left out. Time passed slowly. Get lost! What's sun and moon shining together? Have you seen it in your generation? After Grand Duke Jizhu heard the report, he rolled over on the bed with the quilt wrapped around his body, revealing a thigh that was covered with dense black hair. He scolded, and then he started snoring. The 2 king-level experts looked at each other helplessly, and then retreated. Sun and moon shining together? Dong Wulei sat cross-legged on a prayer mat in the middle of the room. He pondered deeply. You should also think about it. What is the purpose of this? This was the reaction of the Black Saber clan. Sun and moon shining together? Luo Kawu sat up from the bed. His eyes shined brightly. You two, one will keep an eye on the Mo clan's Mo Tianyun. The other will keep an eye on the Ao clan's Ao Sia-yun. As long as they move, we will move. If they do not move, we will not move. Keep an eye on them. Do not relax. This was the reaction of the Luo clan. Or perhaps, this was the most effortless reaction. Gu Yen Yang and Gu Yenyu frowned and looked at each other. Why don't we go and ask Mo Tianyun? If something good really happens, even if our Gu clan cannot eat the meat, it is still good to follow behind and drink the soup. All the great clans have a reaction? Are they sure that the 2 upper 3 heavens dukes came for this? Li Xiongtu's beard expanded. He growled. Whether it is useful or not, let's get it first. I will leave this matter to the 3 of you. What? No problem. No matter which clan it is, let's get it first. Saber and sword shine together, sun and moon shine together. Tu Qianhao's reaction was unique. We only need to watch closely, and don't act blindly without thinking. We'll let them fight each other to the death as long as the target appears. We'll take advantage of them if we can. But we'll kill them if we have no other choice. No matter what, we cannot afford to lose. Sword and saber reflecting sun and moon. I seem to have some impression of this. It was in a book called Family Discipline and Harmony. Which book was it? Xie Danqiong's tender face still had a shy expression like a girl's, but his two slender eyebrows were slowly knitting together. Sword and saber appearing at the same time. No, tonight is nighttime. Xie Danqiong slowly recalled. His voice was so low that it couldn't be heard. More than 10,000 years ago. No, more than 8,000 years ago. No, more than 1,000 years ago. He frowned. Then, he suddenly slapped his thigh. Yes. Yes. What is it? Young lord, did you remember something? The two king-level masters of the Xia clan were startled. More than 1,000 years ago, there was an expert who disappeared like a flash in the pan. Xie Danqiong's phoenix eyes exposed a fierce radiance. His hands that were placed on his knees didn't move. However, two dream-like viburnum flowers suddenly bloomed in his white jade-like palms, slowly rotating. This expert was a sword and saber duel master, and was called a saint at the same time. Xie Danqiong said in a low voice. Sword and saber man, Dong Fang Tsang Qiong. Dong Fang Tsang Qiong? The two king-level masters were perplexed. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the heaven and earth. They called out in a low voice at the same time. Dong Fang Tsang Qiong is known as the saber and sword man. Only he has the symbol valley. Xie Danqiong said calmly. The saber and the sword of the sun can slay immortals and gods. His brilliance shines through the ages. He is the saber and the sword man. Legend has it that Dong Fang Tsang Qiong shocked the upper three heavens when he made his move. That's because he was a master of both saber and sword. He was a saint-level master. It could be said that he was at the peak of perfection. He only appeared for a short period of 20 years. However, the saber and the sword of the sun turned the entire upper three heavens upside down. Legend has it that a blazing sun and a cold moon would appear in the sky as long as he used his saber and sword. Xie Danqiong said softly. 20 years later, an expert of the Three Stars Divine Clan suddenly appeared for some unknown reason. He wreaked havoc in the upper three heavens. No one could stop him. Dong Fang Tsang Qiong was the #1 expert at that time. He was duty-bound. Therefore, he went to the meeting alone and fought a decisive battle with that expert of the Divine Clan. From then on, there was no news of him. That expert of the Three Stars Divine Clan never appeared again. Therefore, the marvelous scene of the saber and the sword reflecting the sun and the moon, and the two brilliances of the firmament disappeared. The two dreamy snowflakes in Xie Danqiong's palms spun more and more rapidly. His fair and tender face showed a trace of excitement. This is not the the heaven sword and the underworld saber. Could it be the sunlight saber and the moonlight sword of the saber and sword saints Dong Fang Tsang Qiong? The two king-level masters of the Xia clan shook at the same time. Their faces showed a pleasantly surprised expression. No one knew that Xie Danqiong had always been Loki. However, his encyclopedic knowledge was the best in the upper three heavens. But if it is true, with the strength of our Xia clan, wanting to obtain it is just wishful thinking. Xie Danqiong's eyes were calm, and his face was tranquil. The only way is to take advantage of the chaos and fish in troubled waters. From today onwards, don't move! Don't move? The two king-level masters asked at the same time. Yes, don't move! Xie Danqiong said calmly. We are inferior to the Dong clan, the Ji clan, the Mo clan, and the Ao clan when it comes to the strength of our clan. But as long as these two weapons are verified by them, they will inevitably fight fiercely over them. But you must know that, when two tigers fight, one of them is bound to be injured. With our strength, I'm afraid we will lose our lives if we don't stay calm. Chapter 255. In another room, Ao Xie Yun suddenly realized. Saber Sword Man? Beside him, the eyes of the three king-level masters lit up and their bodies shook. Sun and moon shine together, saber and sword saints. Ao Xie Yun took a deep breath. If that's true, then this is no small matter. He did not wait for the three king-level masters to express their opinions. He waved his hand and said, However, before we are sure, we must be cautious. We must not expose our intentions. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and said, That Duke Chu may not be telling the truth. His attitude can be said to be probing, but it can also be said that he is loosening the reins only to grasp them better. We must not make any mistakes. Ao Xie Yun cautiously said, You must not be agitated and impulsive. At this time, you must be even more cautious. This includes every word you say, even every cough you make. Every action you take, even every step you take, you have to think it through clearly. Understand? Do you understand? If it is not Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword left behind by Saber and Sword Man, then this matter may be a conspiracy. And this conspiracy is aimed at the big clans of the three heavens. If this is the case, we must not let the schemer succeed. Ao Xie Yun slowly paced back and forth, his voice became calmer and deeper. But if it is really Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword left behind by Saber and Sword Man, then this matter is a big whirlpool. Once you step in and cannot pull out, it is possible that the three heavens will be destroyed. But this is also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Be careful, be cautious. Be careful, to the extreme. Ao Xie Yun took a deep breath, but his eyes flashed with an indescribable light. But whether it is true or not, this is a conspiracy. And we still do not know who is the mastermind behind this conspiracy. Such an opponent is worthy of me, Ao Xie Yun, to go all out. Amo Tianyun woke up from his contemplation. He frowned and said in a low voice, If the sun and moon shine together is true, then it is Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword left behind by Saber and Sword Man. That year, Saber and Sword Man fought against the Three Stars Divine Clan and did not return. His two peerless heavenly weapons also disappeared without a trace. Legend has it that when the Sunlight Saber and the Moonlight Sword meet, a strange phenomenon will appear in the sky. But when the two swords meet, there is nothing special about them. When the two divine weapons meet, the secrets of the Sunlight Saber and the Moonlight Sword would be revealed, and they would become unrivaled experts. Saber and Sword Maniac relied on Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword to set foot on the path of the Saber and Sword Saints. If we can obtain Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword, then even 10,000 Mo Tianjis would not be able to shake my position in the Mo clan. Moreover, the Mo clan will be able to dominate the upper three heavens and fight for the position of the great clan. The more Mo Tianyun thought about it, the hotter his heart became. However, this matter still needs to be handled carefully. You can't be careless. Mo Tianyun muttered to himself. His feminine eyes flashed with determination. If we really fight, then my opponents will be the Black Saber clan and the Ao clan. The rest of us are nothing to worry about. After all, he was different from Ao Xie Yun. Although the two of them had similar intelligence, their situations were completely different. Ao Xie Yun, as the number one successor of the Ao clan, had a stable position and could sit back and relax. Therefore, in the face of this great temptation, he could still maintain a clear mind and clearly calculate the pros and cons of all aspects and how to deal with it. In an instant, he had already extended his thoughts to the problem of success or failure. Moreover, no matter how things progressed, he had already thought of countermeasures. Although Mo Tianyun was now a Grand Duke, his position was not stable. His younger brother, Mo Tianji, was eyeing him covetously and was ready to replace him at any time. Therefore, when Mo Tianyun encountered such a great temptation, the first thing he thought of was the stability of his position, and then the rise and fall of his clan. He immediately began to plot against his opponent. On this point, the two were completely different. All the great clans were discussing, but the discussion time was very short. After all, these men were very decisive people. However, the two people who should be the first to make a decision, Ao Xianyun and Mo Tianyun, pondered for a long time. Mo Tianyun thought over and over again, but was not sure. Ao Xianyun also thought over and over again, but could not come to a conclusion. 1. But there was one thing that the two of them did not agree on. Once the war started, the first two great clans to bear the brunt would be their two clans. And no matter what dispute there was, the final solution would be. It would have to go through their two clans. All the great clans had their own ulterior motives. Yes, there was one person who did not have ulterior motives, Grand Duke Jizhu. This young master was sleeping soundly. He didn't see the anxious faces of the king-level experts of his clan. They looked as if they were about to jump up and down. Not long after Chu Yang returned to his room, Gu Duxing came in through the window. "How is it?" Gu Duxing asked. "It's about time," Chu Yang said. "But right now, we are just observing. We are still making plans and calculations. We are far from being hot-blooded and crazy. It seems that we have to do it again." "That's good," Gu Duxing said. "But if we do it again, only one can appear. We can't have two at the same time. The commotion is too big. It's best to appear under the name of Ask the Heaven's Sword or Underworld Saber." "Of course." Chu Yang smiled mysteriously. "The location for the next time will be the final danger zone. Have you chosen it?" "I am considering whether to choose the Royal Palace or the Imperial Mausoleum." Chu Yang snorted and said, "Or the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department?" "Royal Palace, Imperial Mausoleum, the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department." Gu Duxing sucked in a breath of cold air. This big brother Chu's heart was truly too vicious. Gu Duxing could imagine that if such a situation were to explode, then Great Chao would not be as simple as just a big mess. It would definitely be a disaster for the entire country. On this night, Wu Yunliang led the remaining 300 people of Beyond the Heavens sect to Iron Cloud Citadel. Wu Yunliang had come several times and had secret talks with Tai Butian. But every time he came, it was to ask for an audience. Tai Butian's attitude was reserved and distant. At that time, Tai Butian was only a Grand Duke. But this time, when he came to Iron Cloud, it was already late at night. Moreover, Tai Butian, who was already the ruler of a country, personally came out to welcome him. He gave Wu Yunliang enough face. This made the people of Beyond the Heavens sect feel honored. After some greetings and introductions, Tai Butian's eyes searched for a long time. In the end, he could not help but ask Wu Yunliang in a low voice, "Sect Master Wu, may I ask where your sect's senior Meng is?" Wu Yunliang smiled bitterly and said, "My youngest martial brother has already left lower 3 heavens for upper 3 heavens." Tai Butian said apologetically, "It seems that Senior Meng had no choice." "Yes, my youngest martial brother said that if he stayed in lower 3 heavens, he would become a tool for Diwu Qing Ro to attack his younger martial brothers." Wu Yunliang sighed softly. "Youngest martial brother is proud and arrogant. Plus, he cares about his 2 younger martial brothers to the bone. How could he allow himself to be a burden to them? So he decided to leave." Tai Butian sighed softly. He was also a bit disappointed. He wanted to see Chu Yang's master and junior martial brother this time. He wanted to see what kind of master could teach such a talented disciple. He did not expect that Meng Chao Ran had already left. He left so freely without any hesitation. "Dare I ask your majesty, what is your majesty planning to do with our Beyond the Heavens sect?" Wu Yunliang asked tentatively. He did not want to ask, but Tai Butian's unexpected courteous attitude made Wu Yunliang ask this question. Tai Butian calmed down and said casually, "Beyond the Heavens sect will naturally remain Beyond the Heavens sect. Our strength will not be divided, and we will not belong to any department. What does Sect Master Wu think?" Yes. Wu Yunliang was startled. He originally wanted to merge Beyond the Heavens sect into Butian Pavilion. Then, under Chu Yang's supervision, he could smoothly catch the spies of the sect. While he was at it, he could follow the vine to the melon and expose the Wu Qingrou's scheme. After all, Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian were both at Butian Pavilion. Both of them had high positions and power. Butian Pavilion could not be separated from Beyond the Heavens sect, however. Tai Butian's words mercilessly shattered his fantasy. Moreover, Tai Butian's cold face told him that there was no need to talk about this anymore. Thinking of this, Wu Yunliang smiled bitterly. Tai Butian personally came out to welcome them, but how could it be for me? It was clearly for Meng Chao Ran. She was giving face to King of Hell Chu. As for me, the sect master of Beyond the Heavens sect. Ahem, it's not worth mentioning. After arranging the people of Beyond the Heavens sect in a designated place, Tai Butian left behind a few officials to entertain them and returned to the palace. After a while, Wu Qianqian arrived under the escort of Butian Pavilion. This is not possible! Wu Qianqian shook her head firmly. Chu Yang once said that anyone can enter Butian Pavilion, but not Beyond the Heavens sect. Wei Mao. Wu Yunliang was a little dumbfounded. Just letting a few people in was good enough. He did not expect Chu Yang to block this path ahead of time. If Beyond the Heavens sect wants to stay in Iron Cloud for a long time and flourish, it cannot enter the political arena and cannot enter Butian Pavilion, Wu Qianqian said. This is what Chu Yang once said. He knew that as long as you came, you would ask to enter Butian Pavilion or some other department. He told me to tell you, don't even think about it. Chu Yang said that if you really do this, then as long as Iron Cloud's crisis is not over, Beyond the Heavens sect will be fine. But once Iron Cloud's crisis is over, Beyond the Heavens sect will definitely be destroyed by Tai Butian. No ruler would allow their officials to collude with other sects. No wise ruler would allow this. If Beyond the Heavens sect is not used to death by Di Wu Qingrou's, but dies under the butcher's knife of the people they are loyal to, that would be the greatest tragedy. These are all Chu Yang's words, Wu Qianqian said. I think Chu Yang's words are very reasonable. Chapter 256. Yes, Chu Yang also wanted me to tell you that no matter why you expelled him from Beyond the Heavens sect, he is no longer a member of Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Qianqian hesitated and said, Therefore, when you estimate the strength of Beyond the Heavens sect, you must exclude him. Otherwise, you will suffer. Ha! Niao Yunliang sighed. He could not describe the feeling in his heart. Chu Zhang also. Wu Qianqian lowered her head. What else did he say? Wu Yunliang frowned and smiled bitterly. He said, If you want me to stay in Butian Pavilion, then it would be best if you also expel me, the female slave, from Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Qianqian bit her lips and said with difficulty, This way, we can truly guarantee Beyond the Heavens sect's future. Wu Yunliang sighed. Wu Yunliang was dumbstruck. Before coming here, he had thought about this possibility. But now that everything was going well, he could not help but feel that this was an illusion. He thought that all of this could be done. His original goal was to survive in the gap between Great Shao and Iron Cloud, to survive under the bullying of the big sections. But now, he had succeeded. He did not even have to wait for the final step to achieve his first goal. Therefore, he was greedy. If the government and Jiang who developed at the same time and supported each other, would Beyond the Heavens sect not become the #1 sect in the world in a few years? But at this moment, the ruthless reality hit him hard in the head. Eldest martial brother, do not forget that Beyond the Heavens sect belongs to Jiang Hu. Meng Chao Ran's words once again echoed in his mind. If you insist on letting Beyond the Heavens sect enter the Imperial Court, there is only one possibility. That is when Beyond the Heavens sect is completely wiped out, and only a few people are left. The court is the court, Jiang Hu is Jiang Hu, and sects are sections. This cannot be reconciled and cannot be combined. Even the sects and clans of Jiang Hu are completely different, let alone Jiang Hu and the court. Good. Wu Yunliang's face seemed to have aged a few years. He turned his head and said, Then I will follow your wishes and expel you. The walls of Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Qianqian took a deep breath. She stared blankly for a long while. Suddenly, a bitter feeling of despair arose in her heart. Chu Yang did not say that he was no longer a member of Beyond the Heavens sect. He also did not say anything about Wu Yunliang expelling Wu Qianqian from the sect. Wu Qianqian had acted on her own initiative. Wu Qianqian had undoubtedly sacrificed her youthful years when she had made this decision. She had sacrificed her entire life for the sake of the black robe that represented King of Hell Chu. Perhaps your legend isn't here. Perhaps your future isn't here. Wu Qianqian thought quietly. Perhaps your future doesn't include me. But I'm willing to protect the legend you've created in this place. Black robe is here, King of Hell Chu is here, and you are here. You know how I feel, but you can't respond. I have never made myself known, for I have my pride. Even though I, Wu Qianqian, am just a girl from the pugilistic world, and even though I will never be able to catch up to your achievements, I still have my pride and dignity as a girl. That's why I didn't say anything. I didn't want to receive a clear rejection, and I didn't want to make things difficult for you. But I am here. Even if my heart is broken, even if my soul is broken, even if I am beyond redemption, I am willing to protect this dream of my heart. I will never tell anyone about it in this life. Wu Qianqian silently and firmly said this to herself. At this moment, she was silent, but she was making a lifelong promise in her heart. Wu Yunliang sighed. He did not know what had happened, but he could clearly feel that his daughter, who was in the prime of her life, at this moment of silence, was filled with heartbreak and depression. I'm going back. Wu Qianqian turned around and put on her black robe. The loose black robe covered her thin figure. She walked out with her head held high. She was displaying the domineering aura of King of Hell Chu at this moment. It didn't matter if it was her movements, footsteps, or aura. That kind of cruel and ruthless aura. Even though no one knew that behind this terrifying black robe that symbolized all of Iron Cloud, there was a delicate heart that was breaking little by little. The experts of Butian Pavilion who had been waiting outside immediately appeared and escorted this King of Hell Chu, who had shaken the entire Iron Cloud. Eldest brother. Kong Jing Feng walked out from behind the screen. Qianqian has really grown up. Yes, she has grown up. Wu Yunliang let out a long sigh and said, she has grown up to the point where even I, her father, do not understand her. When Wu Qianqian returned, Tai Butian was waiting for her at Butian Pavilion. Your Majesty? It is so late. Why are you here? Wu Qianqian asked in surprise. I couldn't sleep. There is something I need to discuss with you. Tai Butian sighed deeply. Between her eyebrows, there was an unconcealable worry. What is it? Wu Qianqian immediately became spirited. She knew that something that could make Tai Butian reveal such an expression was not a small matter. Butian Pavilion is going to make a big move. And you, King of Hell Chu, will have to make a few public appearances. Tai Butian said in a low voice. Did he encounter some trouble in Great Xiao? Wu Qianqian asked. Wu Qingro is not easy to deal with. That's right. Minister Chu has successfully caused chaos in the continent. However, he has also created an opportunity for Wu Qingro. What we need to do now is to prove that King of Hell Chu is still in Iron Cloud. Tai Butian looked at the black robe on his body. King of Hell Chu will always be in Iron Cloud. He will not leave. Miao Qianqian said in a low voice. Regarding the operation, I have been planning it these past few days. It should be carried out tomorrow. But... Wu Qianqian raised her head. Her eyes were sharp. This is our Butian Pavilion's matter. The information should have reached my hands immediately. How did it reach your Majesty? This should be Qing Yutong's dereliction of duty. Tai Butian cut a rare sorry figure under Wu Qianqian's pressuring gaze. He straightened his face and coughed a few times. Then he said, I was the one who requested clan leader Chen to report to me as soon as possible regarding any news from the Great Xiao. But this is not in accordance with Butian Pavilion's procedures. Wu Qianqian said bluntly. Your Majesty, please take back this decision. Tai Butian opened his mouth and looked at her. After a long time, a complicated look appeared in his eyes. He said, "That's fine. As for Butian Pavilion's operation, I will arrange it overnight." Wu Qianqian said indifferently, "If your Majesty has nothing else to say, please go back." This was the autonomy he left for Butian Pavilion. Whatever he left behind, she could not lose. Therefore, Wu Qianqian's performance was extremely strong. She would not yield an inch, even if she was facing the Emperor. This was Wu Qianqian's greatest pride. But this kind of forcefulness made Tai Butian suddenly have a strange feeling in her heart. Tai Butian looked at Wu Qianqian's golden ferocious mask in a daze. Looking at the black robe that covered her body tightly, a strange look appeared in his eyes. It was as if he was yearning, as if he was reminiscing, and as if he was angry. Wu Qianqian was shocked. Looking at Tai Butian's eyes, Wu Qianqian could not help but think too much. She thought about how His Majesty still had not married an empress or a concubine. She could not help but become extremely vigilant. Could it be that he actually has those kinds of thoughts towards me? She took 2 steps back and said coldly, "Your Majesty, this is Butian Pavilion. Your Majesty, please conduct yourself with dignity." Tai Butian immediately became embarrassed. He coughed repeatedly and looked embarrassed. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Have thoughts towards you? How is this possible?" Then cough, 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 "I will take my leave. Farewell, Your Majesty." Watching Tai Butian leave under the protection of the shadow guards, Niao Qianqian's eyes revealed a repressed look. "Chu Yang, you bastard! You left me here. If by any chance His Majesty—" "Humph, if that happens, I, Wu Qianqian, would rather die. I will not let him have his way. My heart is already buried deep for you." Wu Qianqian's eyes slowly became as calm as ice. She waved her hand and said in a low voice, "Send my order. Tell Hall Leader Chen to come here immediately." Not long after, Qin Yutong almost sprinted to King of Hell Chu's door. Just as he was about to knock, the door suddenly opened. King of Hell Chu, wearing a black robe and a mask, appeared like a ghost. "Hall Leader Qin, you have been quite bold during this period of time." King of Hell Chu's strange words almost scared Qin Yutong out of his wits. "I do not dare." "Ha, you do not dare? What do you not dare to do, Hall Leader Chen?" Wu Qianqian smiled sinisterly. "Even the information about our Butian Pavilion can't be seen by me, the minister. Yet, the Emperor is here to tell us." Qin Yutong fell to his knees. "Minister, this is His Majesty's secret order. I do not dare to disrespect you. I do not care what difficulties you have," Wu Qianqian said without the slightest bit of sympathy. "Since you have done it, you must bear the consequences. Hall Leader Chen, do you think Heavenly Secrets Hall is punishing you? Or are you punishing yourself?" "I am willing to accept the punishment." Qin Yutong shuddered. Minister Chu's way of handling things was becoming more and more unpredictable. If Heavenly Secrets Hall was punished because of him, then everyone would know that he, the hall leader, was the one who was implicated. He had already been through this once. If it happened again, he would not be far from stepping down. 200 strikes of the rod. Wu Qianqian said casually. "Go get it yourself. If you miss 1 strike, you will automatically retire. Get out of here." Wu Qianqian roared. "If something like this happens again, be careful of your head." Qin Yutong fled in defeat. The surrounding guards were as silent as cicadas in winter. Wu Qianqian was silent for a while and said, "Pass down my order. Tell Hall Leader Chen to prepare for action." "Yes." Chapter 257. On the way back to the Imperial Palace, Tai Butian frowned as she sat in the palanquin. Her eyes were somewhat frustrated. "I just want to know if he is doing well in Great Xiao. Is he in danger? Is Jiga going well? Whether or not he could withstand the immense pressure he was under right now." That was all. But Wu Qianqian's resolute and decisive struggle just now was very similar to, "They are all pitiful people." Tai Butian heaved a long sigh. Unknowingly, she had blurted out these words. "What orders does your majesty have?" The two shadow guards asked at the same time. "Pitiful people? Who?" "Nothing." Tai Butian's muffled and embarrassed voice came out from the palanquin. The two shadow guards said "oh" and disappeared into the void. In the palanquin, Tai Butian reached out and touched her hot cheeks. Thinking of the sentence just now, she couldn't help but smile bitterly and helplessly. Pitiful? Who is more pitiful? At least Wu Qianqian has a black robe and a king of hell Chu. But I don't even have these. Being born in the royal family, was he destined to be a loner? Tai Butian heaved a long sigh. Who would know that I, the emperor, actually don't want to sit on the throne? Oh, men who plow and women weave, your greatest hope in life is the golden horse and jade hall. But do you know that my greatest wish is to be like you, working at sunrise and resting at sunset, men plow and women weave, living a leisurely life? Tai Butian tiredly closed her eyes. Her body gently swayed along with the palanquin. She slowly felt that her heart was as lonely as the ice and snow at the top of the mountain. The road of the emperor is a lonely road. And I, Tai Butian, am destined to be more lonely than any other emperor. Because, the second half of the night, Di Wuqingrou's face was so ugly that it was somewhat scary. Sun and moon resurgence? Are you sure? I am sure. Jing Menghun's face was also not good. The moment he saw the sun and moon resurgence, he saw dozens of crowns appear in the sky. It was as if he saw the sky collapse. Sun and moon resurgence, for 10,000 years, there is only one possibility. And it is related to sabers and swords. Di Wuqingrou took a deep breath and said, Sunlight saber and moonlight sword. So ruthless. King of Hell Chu, you are so calculating. Jing Menghun was shocked. Di Wuqingrou had clearly gritted his teeth and said these words. Being able to make Di Wuqingrou's face turn ugly was already an incredible matter. Being able to make Di Wuqingrou gnash his teeth was even more unimaginable. Everything is interconnected. Everything is interconnected. Di Wuqingrou sighed and slowly said, This should be King of Hell Chu's response. I hadn't expected that King of Hell Chu's counterattack would come so quickly and so sinisterly. Counterattack? Jing Menghun was puzzled. Even if it caused an even fiercer fight, it should still proceed according to the Prime Minister's plan. What was there to be afraid of? You don't understand. What's frightening isn't this kind of competition. What's frightening is where King of Hell Chu will detonate this competition. Di Wuqingrou sighed and said, There are two places for King of Hell Chu to choose from. One is the Imperial Palace, and the other is the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department. If he chooses the Imperial Palace, it would be fine. Even if there is chaos, it would still be bearable. But if he detonates it at the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department, then, not only would all our efforts in the past few days be for naught, the entire Feng province would become a rotten mess. It would also be very likely that we would lose most of our manpower. You should know that the suction force of these sabers and swords is aimed at the clans of the three heavens. Di Wuqingrou frowned. And these people, even if they are lying in front of our door with only one breath left, they are not people we can recruit. We can only treat them and then send them away. There is no benefit for us. Tomorrow, I will personally go to Heaven Reaching Tower. In addition to meeting the two Grand Masters Chu, I will also test the reactions of the major clans. I hope that the scene I don't want to see the most does not appear. Di Wuqingrou's eyes were full of worry as he slowly spoke. The next morning, Chu Yang had just woken up when he heard a knock on the door. The shopkeeper of Heaven Reaching Tower, Du Fa Kai, had come to visit. Grand Master Chu, haha, did you sleep well? Du Fa Kai smiled from ear to ear. Not bad. Chu Yang washed himself and said casually, It was hard on you, Mr. Du. How did you know that I like this kind of absolute purple orchid the most? I really did not think of it. Du Shaokai became even more respectful and said, "My lord, this lowly one had to go to several places to get the absolute fragrance of the purple orchid from the imperial palace. If my lord is satisfied, then this lowly one is relieved." Chu Yang wiped his face with a towel and said, "It is so early in the morning. Does shopkeeper Du have an urgent matter?" "Yes, yes," Du Fa Kai respectfully said. "It is the Prime Minister of Great Zhao, Di Wuqing Ro, who sent someone to deliver an invitation. He wants to see the two Grand Masters this morning. This little one will pass on the message." Prime Minister of Great Zhao. Di Wuqing Ro? Chu Zhang closed his eyes and revealed a thoughtful expression. His tone was also interrogative. This Prime Minister Diwu is an extraordinary character. Du Fa Kai kindly reminded him. With his own strength, he created Great Zhao's current prosperity. As he said this, he talked a lot. It seems that shopkeeper Du has a deep impression of this Prime Minister Diwu. Chu Yang said with a smile that was not a smile. If that is the case, how can I not give shopkeeper Du face? As he said this, he reached out and took the invitation. Du Fa Kai tactfully retreated. Di Wuqing Ro's invitation? Chu Yang flipped through the gilded greeting card, and a feeling of absurdity arose in his heart. He smiled and opened the invitation. On it was written, "Greetings, Brother Chu, Qing Ro has come to pay respects." These 8 words were written in an elegant and vigorous style. They were written in a strict manner. It was as steady as a mountain, but it also revealed an awe-inspiring aura. Looking at the literal meaning, it seemed like it was an old friend who had not seen each other for many years. This handwriting must have been deliberately done by Di Wuqing Ro. It is to give me a show of strength. Chu Yang smiled and put the invitation aside. He thought to himself, "It seems that Di Wuqing Ro still suspects that I am king of Hell Chu. But since this guy dares to take the risk, he has some courage." Chu Yang thought and suddenly shivered. It can't be just some courage. Could it be that Di Wuqing Ro himself is a master? I can't eliminate this possibility. Originally, Chu Yang planned to let Gu Duxing receive Di Wuqing Ro when he came, but now he changed his mind. Since Di Wuqing Ro was coming, why should he hide? Di Wuqing Ro was already suspicious of his identity. If he avoided meeting him, wouldn't it make him even more suspicious? If that is the case, then I will deal with you, the wisest person in the world. Chu Yang's eyes revealed a meaningful smile. This was his biggest opponent in the lower 3 heavens. If he did not meet him, no matter who won or lost in the future, he would inevitably have regrets in his heart. Di Wuqing Ro is coming? Gu Duxing walked over from the next room. He was full of energy. Yes. Should I deal with him or you? I will, Chu Zhang said. But don't go away. So as not to complicate matters. Gu Duxing nodded. Suddenly, his eyes flashed with a lightning-like sword intent. If I kill this guy with one strike, absolutely not. Chu Yang was shocked. Who is Di Wuqing Ro? If he dares to come, how can he not be sure of his safety? I am sure that if we make a move, not only will we not be able to kill him, we will also die without a doubt. Gu Duxing said casually. I am just joking with you. Chu Yang sighed. How could he not see that Gu Duxing's heart was already filled with killing intent? He said seriously again. Absolutely not. Do you understand? Okay. Gu Duxing said unwillingly. Also, don't show your hostility. Chu Yang warned again. Okay. Your aura, okay. Your sword energy, are you tired of it? Chu Yang was speechless. When the morning sun shone on the earth, Di Wuqing Ro arrived at heaven-reaching tower. There were only 2 people accompanying him. Jing Menghun and Yin Wu Tian. With these 2 king-level leaders by his side, Di Wuqing Ro was confident that even if heaven-reaching tower was a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, it would not be able to stop him. Prime Minister Duke Chu has been waiting for you for a long time. Du Fa Kai stepped forward and said. Shopkeeper Du has worked hard. Di Wuqing Ro smiled. Did Duke Chu say anything? Du Fa Kai was startled and said. Duke Chu did not say anything, but from his expression, it seems like he is used to it. Used to it? Diwu Qingro chuckled and said, Shopkeeper Du, please lead the way. Thank you. When Diwu Qingro climbed the stairs to the last floor, he suddenly felt something and could not help but look up. In front of him was a vast expanse of snow and ice. Two young men in white stood quietly at the top of the stairs to welcome him. It was only two people, but Diwu Qingro suddenly felt like he was surrounded by flowers and jade trees. At the same time, a faintly discernible sword energy surged in the air. This was not a murderous aura, nor was it sword energy, nor was it an imposing aura. It was a kind of charm that a swordsman could unconsciously emit. This charm was something that even a top swordsman would not be able to completely conceal. To be able to conceal it to such an extent, it was enough to show that these two young swordsmen were using all their strength. And this kind of attitude, from a fundamental point of view, showed a kind of friendliness. It seemed that these two Duke Chu were curious about Diwu Qingro's visit, but did not have the slightest hostility. Is Prime Minister Diwu coming in person? I am Chu Fei. Greetings. At the top of the stairs, the young man had a gentle smile on his face. He was neither servile nor overbearing as he calmly raised his hand to salute. He did not appear to be flattering nor arrogant. It was as if this was a normal visit and the host was eagerly welcoming him. Chapter 258. Chu Yang smiled and repeatedly said that he didn't dare. He looked over and saw that Diwu Qingro was a man in his 40s. He had long eyebrows and phoenix eyes. He had 3 long strands of beard that floated in front of his chest. His hair was as black as ink. His body seemed to be shrouded in a mysterious veil that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. It made people unable to see through him. But when they saw him, they could feel that he was extraordinary. Diwu Qingro's current appearance was more like that of a hermit in the mountains. If one were to look at him like this, no one would be able to imagine that this tranquil and carefree person was the prime minister of a nation. He was an ambitious and ruthless person who controlled millions of troops and controlled the world's situation. He could make clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Even the enemy could only move between his palms. This was Diwu Qingro. But now, his body was full of peace. His eyes were full of grace and compassion. He seemed to be a compassionate man with lofty ideals. He was facing the suffering of the world. He was sighing with heartache. Prime Minister is too polite. Please. Chu Yang stepped aside and extended his hand to welcome the guest. Elder Chu, please. Diwu Qingro asked with a refined smile. Chu Yang and Diwu Qingro walked side by side as he stepped on the stairs. This is... Diwu Qingro looked at Gu Du-shing with a smile. Gu Du-shing's cold eyes also looked over. A sword flashed in his eyes. Sword energy filled the air. Looking at Diwu Qingro was like looking at a corpse. This was a kind of look in his eyes. It was as if he wanted to slaughter the world with his sword. He had no scruples. Everyone in the world was a dead man in front of his sword. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian's aura surged violently. Their 4 eyes looked at Gu Du-shing fiercely. The other side's indifferent attitude was unbearable for these 2 king-level masters. This was contempt. Whether it was Diwu Qingro's power or the dignity of a king-level master, they couldn't allow such contempt in front of them. The 3 auras suddenly collided. Gu Du-shing's face turned pale. His body suddenly leaned back. His eyes became even colder. His sword energy surged out like a violent wave. This is my elder brother, Chu Nan. Chu Yang was somewhat embarrassed. He coughed and said, Grandpa Seed, please don't take offense. My eldest brother doesn't like to talk. He cultivates. He looked at Gu Du-shing with an inquiring gaze. Gu Du-shing nodded and didn't say a word. He cultivates. Emotionless sword Dao. Chu Yang's voice was somewhat low. Oh. Diwu Qingro, Jing Menghun, and Yin Wutian suddenly understood. No wonder this guy is as cold as a coffin. He cultivates the emotionless sword way. He couldn't be blamed for this. Thinking this way, he withdrew his aura at the same time. But Gu Du-Xing didn't withdraw his aura. The sword energy crisscrossed in the closed passageway. On the walls on both sides, there were dozens of crisscrossing sword marks. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian looked at each other in amazement. How old was the other party? He actually had such an achievement. He was a revered level swordsman, and he used his body as a sword to release sword energy. Such a person was definitely a genius in the sword Dao. However, if such a young man were to cultivate the emotionless sword Dao, although it would be extremely powerful, it would be equivalent to him losing his youth. To a person's life, this was truly a regrettable thing to do. This kind of pity would become an inner demon the more profound it was. Thinking this, Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian looked at each other at the same time. They both saw the gloating look in each other's eyes. Brother Ling cultivates the emotionless sword Dao. We can see this. Jing Menghun was a first-grade king-level expert. But when he looked at Gu Du-Xing, a second-grade revered sword master, he unexpectedly felt that the other party's fighting spirit and sword intent were constantly rising crazily. No matter how powerful his aura was, the other party's sword intent was like an ice-cold needle that was constantly moving forward. It would break through the surface and advance courageously. Jing Menghun had a feeling that this young swordsman's fighting style was absolutely crazy. I would rather my whole body turn into minced meat. But as long as my sword is still there, I can still poke a hole in your body. Facing this young revered sword master, Jing Menghun felt as if his back was drenched in sweat. If he could cultivate to the third grade of Sword King with such ruthless sharpness, perhaps a king-level expert like himself would have to run as far away as possible. This had nothing to do with the depth of his primary power. It was a characteristic of the emotionless sword Dao. As long as he used his sword, there would be no return. Jing Menghun could easily kill a third-grade Sword King with his cultivation. But under the opponent's sharp counterattack, he would suffer a sword wound that would never heal. His soul would be damaged. Once it was formed, he would never be able to advance again. Jing Menghun would never do such a thing. Therefore, he asked Chu Yang out of curiosity. But I don't know if Grand Duke Chu also cultivates the sword. His voice faintly carried an inquisitive tone, and it was somewhat overbearing. He had been in a superior position for a long time. He had always talked to his subordinates. He had developed a habit of speaking condescendingly. In fact, he was not being disrespectful. But Diwu Qingro couldn't help but frown when he heard this. You are? Chu Yang revealed a questioning look as he looked at Jing Menghun. My surname is Jing. I am the Prime Minister's attendant and bodyguard, Jing Menghun calmly said. Oh. Chu Yang exhaled. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he said, Brother Jing is right. I also cultivate the sword. But it's not the ruthless way of the sword. It's... He hesitated for a moment. It seemed as if he was hesitating whether he should say it or not. Diwu Qingrou's eyes flashed with a trace of light. Isn't this Grand Duke Chu's temper a bit too good? But then he heard Chu Yang say, It's the secular way of the sword. He smiled gently. But he slowly raised his head after he had finished answering the other party's question. Then, he slowly said with a warm smile, Brother Jing, this is the first time we've met. So I'll answer your question on behalf of Diwu Qingrou. Diwu Qingrou had just doubted his good temper. But his bad temper had immediately flared up. Chu Jian looked at Jing Menghun's cold eyes. However, he still had a smile on his face as he calmly said, However, I don't like people interrupting me when I'm talking to someone. If there's a next time. I don't care if you're a king-level expert or an emperor-level expert. I don't care if you're a king-level expert of the Golden Horse Riders Department, or a king-level expert of the Silver Donkey Riders Department. Do you understand? His eyes suddenly flashed like a sharp sword as he looked at Jing Menghun. He was a young man, but his body was brimming with a kind of lofty and superior demeanor. It seemed as if he was on the same level as the heavens. His body was at the top of the world. His eyes were filled with disdain. His aura was unhindered. His eyes were cold and sharp. He looked at a king-level master as if he was looking at an ant. He had always referred to himself as I. But he was now full of this Grand Duke. That kind of playboy aura of the top clan of the upper three heavens was suddenly revealed. I'm crazy. My cultivation isn't as good as yours. But I dare to scold you in front of you. I point at your nose and scold you. You have a temper? You've got guts. You dare to speak to me in a condescending tone? I'll crush you to death with a condescending tone. Jing Menghun's face instantly turned purple. His eyes seemed to be spitting fire. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He took a deep breath and forced himself to lower his head. However, he couldn't help but clench his fists. But he didn't dare to move. The other party was Brother Chu Hu of the upper three heavens. With the strength of the upper three heavens clan, killing a king-level master like him would be as easy as blowing off dust. Moreover, he knew that Diwu Qingro had come here for an important matter. So, how could he dare to ruin Diwu Qingro's plan if Diwu Qingro didn't open his mouth? Forget it. Diwu Qingro's face was still as gentle as before. He didn't show any dissatisfaction. Menghun, don't talk. Chu Yang had just vented his anger. So, he turned his head and faced Diwu Qingro with a warm and gentle smile. I was too anxious. I couldn't help but discipline your servant on your behalf. Haha, I hope Prime Minister won't blame me. Haha, this is my bad temper since childhood. I can't stand people who don't know etiquette. They don't know who's superior and who doesn't know when to advance or retreat. I've made a fool of myself in front of Prime Minister. Diwu Qingro calmly said. It's okay. But Duke Chu was a bit rash. But you're right to discipline him. King-level Master Jing isn't my servant. He's my friend for many years. We've always been like brothers. Like brothers! Jing Menghun heard these words. He suddenly felt warm in his heart. He felt warm. The grievances he had suffered a moment ago had disappeared because of these words. Oh? Chu Yang's pupils shrank. He kindly smiled and said, Don't tell me. I just scolded Prime Minister's friend? These two people hadn't even sat down yet. But they were already at each other's throats. One was cautiously probing. And the other was going all out to deal with the probing. Chu Lu is an honored guest of the upper three heavens. If I haggle over this matter, it would be rather. Diwu Qingro smiled and said, It would be rather ungentlemanly. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. Chu Zhang also kindly smiled and said, Prime Minister, if you want to deal with people like us, you'd better train your subordinates to be more obedient. Then, he laughed heartily and said, But Prime Minister has come here today. So you're my guest. Please, please. I knew early in the morning that Prime Minister was coming. So, I specially prepared good tea for Prime Minister. Please don't be polite. Then, he straightforwardly let Diwu Qingro in. King of Hell Chu had won the first round of the clash between two heroes. Diwu Qingro was at a disadvantage. But he felt somewhat wronged. That was because the other party was completely unreasonable. Diwu Qingro's performance was perfect. The other party was methodical in the beginning. However, he was temperamental. If he said he was unreasonable, he would be unreasonable. If he said he would turn hostile, he would turn hostile. Even Diwu Qingro felt somewhat aggrieved by this sudden outburst of astonishment. Chapter 259. The reason for this was Jing Menghun's interjection. With Jing Menghun's status in Diwu Qingro's group, he had the right to interject. Not only did he have the right to interject, but he also had the right to make decisions. How could the number 1 king-level master of Golden Horse Riders Department be ordinary? But now, Chu Yang's interjection had allowed Chu Yang to rudely grab hold of him. He had used an extremely unreasonable, arrogant, and despotic attitude. He had ruthlessly given Diwu Qingro a show of strength. Diwu Qingro had come to probe. Therefore, Chu Yang would be seen through by Diwu Qingro if he showed any weakness. Therefore, Chu Yang could not show any weakness. On the contrary, He was the Duke of Upper Three Heavens. How honorable was that? How transcendent was that? Diwu-Ching-ro, you are the Prime Minister of a secular country. I have given you a lot of face by meeting you. I don't care if you are an ambitious person or a coward. In my eyes, you are less than a dog's fart. If I want to be angry, I will be angry. If I want to be angry, I will be angry. If I catch a loophole in your subordinates, I will be able to influence your purpose. Although I am rude, I am rude. What can you do about it? Chu Yang's unreasonable behavior this time seemed to be rude and unreasonable. However, his demeanor, bearing, and temperament perfectly displayed the tyrannical power of a super clan of the Upper Three Heavens. Jing Menghun was furious. Diwu-Ching-ro was depressed. But Minister Chu's heart was beating like a drum. After all, he was facing Diwu-Ching-ro. Who would have thought that Diwu-Ching-ro would not be able to see through this? After entering the room, both sides sat down as the host and the guest. However, the harmony that had been there a moment ago had disappeared because of King of Hell Chu's unreasonable provocation. Please, this is the purple crystal tea that I picked from the Purple Cloud Mountain. It's the only one of its kind even in the Upper Three Heavens. Chu Jian politely brought out the teacups. However, there were only 2 seats at the tea table. One was the host, and the other was the guest. Obviously, this Duke Chu did not prepare a seat for a servant, let alone enjoy his good tea. Although Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian were sullen, they could only stand behind Diwu-Ching-ro. Good tea! Diwu-Ching-ro took a sip, closed his eyes, and savored the aftertaste. After a long time, he opened his eyes and sighed. I haven't drunk this tea for many years. This cup of tea seems to have brought me back to the frivolous past when I was a teenager. Oh? Has Prime Minister drunk this tea before? Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. Diwu-Ching-ro's origin had always been a mystery. Some said that he was an orphan, some said that he was a descendant of a noble, some said that he had mysteriously appeared, but none of the legends could be proven. Diwu-Ching-ro's origin was even more mysterious than King of Hell Chu's facade. However, Chu Yang suddenly became alert when he heard these words today. Could it be that Diwu-Ching-ro's roots are in the Upper Three Heavens? Ha! Diwu-Ching-ro smiled meaningfully and said, Ancestor of the Chu clan. Senior Chu, are you still in good health? Chu Yang said solemnly. God bless you, elder ancestor, your body is as healthy as before. You've made a breakthrough in your cultivation. Good people have good karma. Diwu-Ching-ro's face revealed a look of reminiscence as the fragrance of the tea lingered in the air. He said, In those days, the ancestor of the Chu clan, Senior Chu Baishao, used a long sword to gallop unhindered in the Upper Three Heavens. Countless people died under his sword. His illustrious fame and awe-inspiring divine might have left the descendants fascinated and in awe. Prime Minister, I'm afraid you've remembered wrongly. Ancestor did not use a sword back then. Chu Yang frowned, but his face was not worried. Prime Minister, you can't speak carelessly, haha. Diwu-Ching-ro's eyes flashed and said, Did I remember wrongly? Humph. Chu Yang snorted and said, Prime Minister, today I have a good temper. If it were anyone else in the Chu clan, I'm afraid no one would be able to joke with you like this. What a joke! Since Chu Yang planned to pretend to be the Chu clan's patriarch, how could he not ask the blue-clothed man about the Chu clan's affairs? Let's not talk about anything else. Just look at how the blue-clothed man patiently answered Chu Yang's questions that night. It was obvious that Diwu-Ching-ro's probing would not work. Minister Chu asked about the direction of every latrine in the Chu clan. This made the blue-clothed man almost collapse. However, Diwu-Ching-ro's focus was not on this. Sigh, so much time has passed. I've forgotten many things. But there's one thing that I'm still brooding about. Diwu-Ching-ro let out a melancholy sigh and said, I remember that I met Big Brother Fei Ling a few times back then. Big Brother Fei Ling's lifelong regret made me wring my hands and sigh. I was depressed all day long. I don't know if it has been resolved, there are so many people. Where can you find it? Chu Yang sighed sadly. Uncle Fei Ling's heart is probably difficult. As he spoke, Chu Yang revealed a relaxed posture that said, I want to hide it but I can't. It showed that even the Chu clan of the upper three heavens had internal conflicts. But his heart was also cold. This guy also knows that the Chu clan lost a child? Diwu Qingrou's expression softened a little. Duke Chu, you came to the lower three heavens for an important matter, right? Diwu Qingrou asked. Important matter? Haha, the so-called important matter, Prime Minister just said it. That's why we're here. Chu Yang said with some resentment. Actually, we came out with fourth uncle to play. Oh, fourth Master Chu is in the province now. Diwu Qingrou was startled. Humph. Chu Yang snorted and did not comment. Diwu Qingrou laughed and said, I see. But when we came here, we found something interesting. Chu Yang said excitedly. Prime Minister, since you are not an outsider, I will tell you the truth. What is it? I am very interested in that saber and sword. Chu Yang's eyes revealed a hawk-like sharpness. I am determined to get them. Regarding this matter, as a local snake, I ask for your help. After a pause, Chu Yang seemed to have made up his mind. As long as Prime Minister helps me get that saber and sword, then I, Chu Fei, can promise Prime Minister one thing. Yes, you understand. Diwu Qingrou felt a headache coming on. Until now, we have not completely confirmed your identity, and you actually made a request first? And you want the saber and sword that are the focus of attention now? Duke Chu, I am much older than you, but I have a different understanding of this matter. Diwu Qingrou said earnestly. As far as I know, this matter is King of Hell Chu's conspiracy. I don't care if he has pubic hair or wool. Anyway, I want that saber and sword. Chu Yang snorted and said, Prime Minister, even if I am a pervert, I can still tell the authenticity of a saber and a sword. I don't have any other meaning, but I am afraid that Duke Chu will be punished when you return to the clan. Diwu Qingrou said warmly, his voice relaxed. Chu Yang immediately realized that he was being a little too hasty. He sat back down and said with a fake smile, If Prime Minister doesn't want to help, then it's fine. We brothers will just try our luck and have some fun. Diwu Qingrou was silent for a moment and said, I will urge people to investigate again. Oh, if it is too troublesome, then there is no need. Chu Yang leaned back and said, If you want to get it, then there is more than one way. Diwu Qingrou felt like a tiger eating the sky with nowhere to go. This Duke Chu in front of him was unexpectedly watertight and impeccable. Could it be that it is really Duke Chu? But why would Duke Chu appear here? The conversation just now seemed ordinary, but Diwu Qingrou used the inside story of the Chu clan, the martial arts of the Chu clan, the regrets of the Chu clan, the 3 levels of seniority, and the rules of the heavenly layer to test him. However, the other party was able to answer his questions fluently. Moreover, every question was followed by a sharp counterattack. Sometimes, this Duke Chu answered casually, and Diwu Qingrou was a bit overwhelmed. However, Qingrou came here today to ask Duke Chu about something. Diwu Qingrou said. Duke Chu is standing high, so naturally you can see far. Please enlighten me. Diwu Qingrou's attitude suddenly became very humble. What is it? At present, Iron Cloud, Great Zhao, and Wuji are 3 countries. There are many small countries around them. In Duke Chu's opinion, what should be done in such a chaotic situation? In this land of countries, who is the hero? Who is the overlord? Diwu Qingrou sighed and said, For this matter, it can be said that I have exhausted my mind. This. Chu Yang revealed a look of being asked a question, and looked at Diwu Qingrou with some astonishment. His stance was clear. I've never considered the question you've just asked. Oh? What does Duke Chu mean? Diwu Qingrou humbly asked for advice. This, cough cough cough. Duke Chu rolled his eyes and thought for a long time. Then he laughed and suddenly leaned back and said, No matter who wins, it has nothing to do with me. Don't you think so? This clearly meant, I can't answer your question, and I haven't done any research. So I might as well act shamelessly. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. You can ask whoever you want. Diwu Qingrou was stunned. No matter how the other party answered, he could hear the real meaning behind it. After all, this should be the goal of King of Hell Chu's life. If it was really King of Hell Chu, even if it was a lie, Diwu Qingro would not be able to hide it. No one could blaspheme his life's dream. For an adult with a goal, a dream was as important as his first love. All the men in the world who had been hurt by love could scold all the women in the world, but who would dare to say that the woman of his dreams was a prostitute? Even if she was, he would not dare to say it. Just thinking about it would break his heart. If he said it like that, he would hurt his own heart first. But he had never expected that the other party would be so indifferent. Since Prime Minister asked me so many questions, I will also ask you one, Chu Yang asked. Prime Minister, since you are so familiar with Upper Three Heavens and my Chu clan, could it be that Prime Minister also came down from Upper Three Heavens? Diwu Qingro did not speak, but his eyes were deep and he looked at him strangely. Chu Yang knew that something was wrong. He braced himself and asked, Prime Minister, which clan of Upper Three Heavens do you come from? Chapter 260. Chu Yang was startled. Then he scratched his head and said in a childish manner, I really don't have any impression of it. Why? Should I know? The implication was, what kind of big shot are you? Diwu Qingro smiled strangely and shook his head. You shouldn't not know. You shouldn't not know. Chu Yang was stunned. Is this guy's sect extremely famous in the Upper Three Heavens? Is it so famous that even the super aristocratic Chu clan doesn't know about it? But what's the reason for this? Diwu Qingro maintained a meaningful expression. He slowly stood up and said, Yes. Duke, I am very pleased to see you today. If Duke doesn't have any other instructions, I will take my leave. Tea is still warm. Is Duke going back? Dozens of thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind at this moment. Could it be that I didn't know his identity was a flaw? That's not right. If not, then Diwu Qingro has no other choice but to retreat in order to advance? Chu Yang's mind was racing, but his face was expressionless. He stood up with a smile and said, Take care, Prime Minister. I won't see you out. He didn't seem to care whether Diwu Qingro left or not. Diwu Qingro chuckled and said, Many things are complicated. I won't disturb Duke Chu. He slowly stood up and looked at Chu Yang with a meaningful look. Duke Chu, I won't see you out when you go back. Here, I wish you a safe journey. Chu Yang said gracefully. Take care, Prime Minister. Diwu Qingro walked out of the room with a smile and went down the stairs accompanied by Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian. Chu Yang politely sent him off, but stopped at the top of the stairs and watched Diwu Qingro leave. King of Hell Chu had fallen into a disadvantageous position in the second confrontation between the two. That was because he couldn't tell whether Diwu Qingro had really seen through the flaw in Chu Yang's words or if he was just bluffing. Even though Chu Yang's temperament was open-minded, a shadow had been left in his heart. Diwu Qingro walked to the corner of the stairs. Chu Yang was ready to turn back to his room. At this moment, Diwu Qingro suddenly turned around. He glared at Chu Yang, who was about to turn around. Then, he shouted in a deep voice, Chu Yang! Chu Yang acted as if he didn't hear anything. He took a step forward and then turned around. He looked at Diwu Qingro and asked, Prime Minister, what are you doing? Diwu Qingro's hawk-like eyes crossed the stairs and stared straight at Chu Yang's face. At this moment, Chu Yang felt a burning pain on his face, as if his face was being burned red by a needle. It's nothing. This old man's eyes were playing tricks on him. Their eyes met. One of them looked innocent and surprised, with a trace of worry. And Diwu Qingro's eyes were inquisitive. After a long time, Diwu Qingro chuckled and went downstairs. Chu Yang made a nose sound, and no longer paid any attention to him. He returned to his room. And sat down. After a long time, cold sweat suddenly appeared on his face, and his white robes were soaked in a flash. Diwu Qingro had come this time and left now. Chu Yang still couldn't feel the outcome of the battle. Chu Yang wasn't sure if he had concealed his identity, or if Diwu Qingro had seen through his identity. Ever since he was reborn, this was the first time something like this had ever happened. Moreover, Diwu Qingro had always held the initiative. Although Chu Yan had successfully turned the tables a few times, the overall initiative had always been in Diwu Qingro's hands. Chu Yan couldn't see through Diwu Qingro's thoughts at all. Diwu Qingro's shout before he left seemed to have some soul-stirring power. It made Chu Yang's mind go into a trance for a moment. If it weren't for the fact that his mind was far more stable than the average person, he would have naturally agreed at that moment. That was close. Gu Duxing looked at Chu Yang and said. Chu Yang nodded lightly. The two of them looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Diwu Qingrou's aura was indeed not something an average person could withstand. Diwu Qingro stepped down the stairs, his brows deeply furrowed. Even with his wisdom, he couldn't be sure whether this Chu Fei Gong was king of Hell Chu or not. He had been taken down on the spot with a show of strength. The other party's arrogance and unreasonableness only belonged to the younger generation of an aristocratic family. Then, the initiative was shifted. Diwu Qingrou's series of questions seemed to have taken the initiative, but in reality, he didn't get anything out of it. From Bao Ho's shout, Diwu Qingrou knew that he had lost. Because if he was sure, he wouldn't have shouted. If it was Chu Fei, there was no need to shout. If it was Chu Yang, there was even less need to shout. However, he shouted out loud. This was his last resort today. Diwu Qingrou let out a long sigh. This young man, whether he was Chu Fei or Chu Yang, was an extremely terrifying person. There was no need to doubt this point. As he thought, he walked towards the rooms of the Three Heavens officials. When he was halfway there, he suddenly felt something. He turned his head and saw a man in green floating in from outside. He stepped on the stairs, but he was free and easy as if he was riding the clouds. Diwu Qingro turned his head. The other party immediately felt it and turned his head as well. Their eyes met, and the space seemed to freeze. A powerful pressure was emitted from the body of the man in green. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian were startled. They hurriedly mobilized their auras to resist, but found that they couldn't summon their energy. It was as if their lives were being controlled by someone else. They couldn't help but feel their souls leave their bodies. The next moment, Diwu Qingro withdrew his gaze and turned around. The man in green on the stairs had also quietly disappeared. It was as if he had only seen a blur, and nothing had happened. A master! Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian glanced at each other. Their backs were dripping with cold sweat. The same thought popped up in their minds. Could it be that this black-clothed man is the guardian of those two youngsters? Chu clan. Before noon, Diwu Qingro left Heaven-Reaching Tower. After coming out of Chu Ying's room, he went to look for three people, Ao Xie Yun, Mo Tian Yun, and Dong Wulei. The reaction of the three people made Diwu Qingro's heart heavy. He didn't even speak on the way. He just frowned and thought about something. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian were somewhat surprised. Although the attitude of these three brothers was ambiguous, the main purpose of today's visit was to see whether or not Chu Yang was king of Hell Chu. In their eyes, this Chu Fei Gong was absolutely not king of Hell Chu. This was already a done deal. No matter how one looked at it, his performance was impeccable. If he wasn't Chu clan's younger brother, how could he know so much about the Chu clan? Even though Jing Menghun had been severely scolded by Chu Yang, he didn't doubt Chu Yang's identity. Prime Minister, what do you think? Jing Menghun carefully asked. They were already on the road and weren't far from the Prime Minister's residence. There were very few people on the road. What do you think? Diwu Qingro glanced at him. This Chu Fei Gong shouldn't be king of Hell Chu, Jing Menghun said with certainty. Yin Wutian nodded calmly to express his agreement. It's between the two. Diwu Qingro slowly shook his head. I can't say for sure. But I still think that he may be king of Hell Chu's incarnation. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian felt a little dizzy. The matter was already so clear. Why was Diwu Qingro still holding on to it? If King of Hell Chu was really the Duke of a super clan of the upper three heavens, then what was the point of playing around? What was the point of playing around? What if he angered the Chu clan by holding on to it like this? What should he do? Let's wait and see. It won't be too late for me to break the bankai when King of Hell Chu makes his move. Diwu Qingro obviously had the same concerns. Before he had set off, he was 80% sure that this Chu Fei Gong was King of Hell Chu. But after they had met and left, this certainty had dropped to a certain level. Diwu Qingro also felt somewhat uneasy. Diwu Qingro's guess had dropped again when he had seen the black-clothed man. It had become half and half. The remaining half was what Diwu Qingro had said before he left. Did he have to know Diwu Qingro's identity after coming down from the upper three heavens? Even Diwu Qingro himself felt that this statement was untenable. However, not knowing Chu Yang's identity was always somewhat suspicious. The remaining 40% was purely Diwu Qingro's intuition. Although this Chu Fei Gong did not show any hostility towards him, deep in Diwu Qingro's heart, he had a stubborn intuition. This is King of Hell Chu. This feeling did not make any sense. But he was certain. From tonight onwards, we will use our influence on the people we can't catch, Diwu Qingro said slowly. King-level Master Yin will be in charge of this matter. King-level Master Jing, you have to carefully observe tonight's movements. Diwu Qingro's eyes had a deep sense of exhaustion. Tonight, it is fine if the saber and the sword do not appear. But once they appear, I am afraid it will be a terrible bloody storm. Jing Menghun cautiously agreed. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was night again. As night fell, the three heavenly dukes in the prefecture capital all opened their eyes wide and focused. On the roof of heaven-reaching tower, there were several people whose sleeves were fluttering in the wind. They stared at the flickering lights in the dark night, and did not move. In the city, almost all of the buildings with high vantage points had people guarding them. Moreover, these places were basically occupied by king-level masters. But tonight, it was very quiet. Even the fights between Jianghu people had decreased a lot. As the Heaven's Sword did not appear, nor did Underworld Saber. Of course, Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword were also nowhere to be seen. Another day passed. On the afternoon of the second day, someone suddenly discovered the location of As the Heaven's Sword. After a short period of time, the person holding As the Heaven's Sword successfully broke out of the encirclement and disappeared. All the king-level masters had made a wasted trip. On the night of the second day, someone discovered As the Heaven's Sword being chased. So after another fight, they escaped again. In a few days and nights, this kind of situation happened more than 20 times. It was said that the person holding As the Heaven's Sword and Underworld Saber was covered in wounds and was exhausted from running for his life. Dozens of king-level masters were like big birds, running here and there. Everyone had a belly full of anger and was about to explode. Finally, a huge commotion began on the night of the fifth day. On the night of the full moon in the sky, the curtains were drawn. When the full moon rose to the middle of the sky, from Continent City below, two rays of light seemed to be very far away, but suddenly rose up. The sun and moon shining together appeared again. Chapter 261. The full moon rose into the sky above everyone's head, emitting a bright and clear radiance that shrouded the blue dome of heaven and spilled over the earth. The experts who had been exhausted for several days were also somewhat tired. Everyone was guessing, could it be that those two fellows were hiding in a mouse hole? Why couldn't they find them even after such a great search? But at this time, a dumbstruck guy suddenly pointed to the sky and shouted himself hoarse. All the absent-minded experts looked up and suddenly stood up with a bang. Above their heads, there were two full moons. One was the sun. As for the other two, although they were not as radiant as the real sun and moon, they were still real existences. Sun and moon shining together. Sunlight saber, moonlight sword. They appeared. Everyone flew up to the sky at the same time. More than 40 crowns glittered in the sky, dazzling the eyes. Near and far, king-level experts were rushing over one after another, and one after another, they propped up their own energy shields. 2 directions, one in the east and the other in the west. Then, the halo of sunlight saber began to move. With a loud roar, the experts soared up and rushed toward that direction. The halo of moonlight sword flickered and immediately disappeared. It seemed that the owner of Moonlight Sword had discovered the abnormality, and decisively returned the sword to its sheath. But Sunlight Saber was still flashing. For some unknown reason, the halo of Sunlight Saber was still there even after the disappearance of Moonlight Sword. But now, no one was thinking about this problem. Existence? Existence is leading us to seize it. The light beam on the ground was running in a panic. High up in the sky, the king-level experts who were chasing closely behind had fanatical brilliance in their eyes. Now that Sunlight Saber had appeared, there was no need to think about hiding it. The most important thing now was to see who among the dozens of king-level experts would have the strength to take the lead. There were many people, and even more experts. But there was only one Sunlight Saber. Many people were calculating their own allies and enemies, as well as the most powerful person to seize it. Suddenly, with a shio sound, 2 white silhouettes appeared from below like shooting stars chasing after the moon. Everyone! This saber I, Chu Mao, want it! A clear and bright voice roared, as if announcing the ownership of the saber. Chu Mao? Fuck, who do you think you are? You actually want it? All the king-level experts were furious. Everyone's faces were covered anyway. So, no one knew who they were. Why would they care about the upper 3 heavens or the lower 3 heavens under such circumstances? However, the 2 white shadows were very close to Sunlight Saber. All the masters sped up and rushed over as if their lives depended on it. Jing Menghun sighed helplessly in the distant sky. As expected. It was just as the Prime Minister had guessed. The direction in which the circle of light was moving was the Imperial Palace. And it was already very close to the palace. The Great Zhao Imperial Palace was the symbol of Great Zhao's imperial power. This was also the most stubborn force against the Wuqing Rou. And they were all gathered here. Although the royalists had been suppressed by the Wuqing Rou all these years, they could not be eradicated. The imperial city had become their last bastion. In Great Zhao's imperial city, experts were as numerous as clouds. The security here far exceeded that of the Iron Cloud Imperial Palace. However, this so-called experts as numerous as the clouds was only a relative term. When dealing with ordinary people of the Jianghu, it could be said that experts were as common as clouds. However, when compared to the dozens of king-level experts from the upper 3 heavens, it was not as common as clouds. It was like a herd of pigs and sheep. The Great Zhao Imperial Palace reacted quickly. The first thing they did was to rain down arrows like a waterfall. Then dozens of people jumped out and shouted, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Imperial Palace? Kill without mercy!" Then more people rushed out from the top of the Imperial Palace's walls. The blade was as fast as lightning, and actually carried the radiance of the full moon as it whistled through the air. Laughing maniacally, it collided with the arrows that filled the sky. Ping, pun, 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 pun. A few of the Imperial Guards were sent flying into the air like rubber balls. Following which, the figure riding the full moon blade let out a rumbling sound, followed by a cry of, "A wood dog ant! Dog ant!" His excited cries entered the Imperial Palace without any fear. A white shadow followed closely behind. It also rushed in like lightning. The people in the distance looked at him warmly. It was the young master of the Chu clan from the upper 3 heavens, Chu Fei. However, Chu Yan was so happy that he almost fell from the sky when he heard GMO call out to his dog ant. He still did not understand what GMO meant by dog ant. The Imperial Palace was immediately alarmed. "Stop! Stop!" The commander of the Imperial Palace's guards shouted. "Stop them! Kill without mercy!" He had already seen many people rushing over from the distance. Jing Menghun sighed and closed his eyes. He thought, it would have been better if you didn't say this. Once you say kill without mercy, the Imperial Palace will really turn into ruins. Sure enough, The people in the imperial palace did not hesitate at all under the command of the imperial palace's guards. They rushed to the top of the imperial palace's magnificent walls. Then, with a rumbling sound, the outer walls of the imperial palace collapsed. These people were all king-level experts of the upper three heavens. The situation was urgent. If they were late, they would lose the treasured saber that was related to the prosperity of their clans. Why would they care about the imperial palace of the lower three heavens? Naturally, it was as if they were walking on flat ground. They roared and rushed forward. Almost at the moment of contact, the imperial palace's guards exploded with blood. Then, dozens of king-level experts rushed in like meteors. They entered the imperial palace without any hesitation. Then, the Jianghu army rushed in like a tsunami. Suddenly, there were shrill screams, the sound of the alarm horn, the sound of the palace collapsing, the sound of fighting, and the sound of swords clashing. It was a mess. Dust and smoke billowed. Jing Menghun hung his head sadly in the distance. It's over. There was no way to stop this chaos. Diwu Qingro had always believed that this was King of Hell Chu's evil plan. Even when the upper three heavens clans believed that it was Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword, Diwu Qingro still believed that this was King of Hell Chu's plot. But at that time, it was already uncontrollable. It was just like when Chu Yang had found out that Diwu Qingro was using him to stir up trouble and gather people. He had been helpless and at a loss of what to do. Diwu Qingro knew that this was King of Hell Chu's plot, but he could only watch. He did not know where King of Hell Chu was, nor did he know where the saber and the sword were. He knew that things would develop like this, but he was powerless to stop it. For someone like Diwu Qingro, who was used to being in control, this was the most depressing thing. 7 days ago, King of Hell Chu had suffered such a grievance. Now, the wheel of fortune had turned, and it was finally Diwu Qingro's turn to taste it. These days, Diwu Qingro had been thinking about where King of Hell Chu would trigger this chaos. After thinking for a long time, he decided on the Imperial Palace and Golden Horse Riders Department. For this matter, Diwu Qingro let Jing Menghun use 3 days and 3 nights to make arrangements for Golden Horse Riders Department. Those who should be evacuated were evacuated. Those who should be evacuated were evacuated. A group of experts also left their original residence. At present, Golden Horse Riders Department, except for a few people who were left behind to guard the recently captured Jianghu people, the rest were gone. Diwu Qingro also wanted to evacuate these people, but he really did not have enough time. Moreover, there was no place to receive them. These people were still unruly. If there was a mutiny, the loss would be too great. Diwu Qingro could not bear such an accident. Therefore, he had no choice but to leave them here. Now that Jing Menghun looked at the chaos in the Imperial Palace, he finally felt relieved. At least the Imperial Palace was in chaos, and Golden Horse Riders Department would not be in chaos. This was a great fortune in an unfortunate situation. It was not that Diwu Qingro did not inform the Imperial Palace to be on guard. No matter how lawless he was still a minister of great Zhao in name. He even transferred people to help the Imperial Palace evacuate. However, Diwu Qingro's good intentions were ruthlessly rejected by the Emperor. Moreover, it was said that the Emperor sneered at that time. Diwu Qingro, do you really think I am stupid? Attack the Imperial Palace? Humph, as long as Diwu Qingro does not attack the Imperial Palace, is there anyone else in this world who is so crazy? When the messenger reported, Diwu Qingro let out a long sigh. He had given up on the Imperial Palace. He knew that King of Hell Chu would make a move. Moreover, he had calculated it. If there was a riot in Golden Horse Riders Department, the experts of Golden Horse Riders Department could quickly evacuate. Even if there was a riot, it would not be too big. However, the Imperial Palace could not be moved. The people in the Imperial Palace were also weak. The Imperial Palace was the heart of a nation. Since King of Hell Chu had already caused a huge riot, if he let go of a place like the Imperial Palace, then King of Hell Chu would not be King of Hell Chu. However, the Imperial Palace did not trust Diwu Qingro. They mercilessly rejected Di Wuqingrou's good intentions. Di Wuqingru could only give up on this effort. In fact, he was just making a gesture. The imperial palace was already on fire. The flames were so bright that half the sky was red. The surrounding troops came to calm the chaos. Minister Chu, dressed in white, was running back and forth in the imperial palace. Rather than saying that he was here to fight for Sunlight Saber, it was better to say that he was here to cover for GMO. Once the owner of Sunlight Saber was in danger, Duke Chu would descend from the sky and rush into the battle. However, once he rushed in, the king-level leaders would be restrained and unable to act freely. Who would dare to kill Duke Chu of Upper Three Heavens in front of so many people? Wouldn't that be courting death? There were countless witnesses here. Thus, Duke Chu was awe-inspiring. Wherever he went, there was no one. Moving left and right, the owner of Sunlight Saber would find time to control the saber and say in a strange voice, "Dog Ant! I am running away from Upper Three Heavens." Thus, they began to chase after him again. "Too dark. I can't see anything. Motherfucker, wouldn't it be much better if we set it on fire?" Duke Chu yelled. The king-level leaders immediately realized that it was too difficult to find someone in this dark place. Even though Duke Chu was a troublemaker, his words were very reasonable. No one knew who started it, but everyone started a fire at the same time. A king-level leader somehow found the imperial palace's oil storage. Barrels of oil, no matter what kind of oil it was, were thrown into the fire like dumplings. Puff, 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 boom, boom, boom. Chapter 262. The fire in the palace was so bright that it was as bright as day. But the thick smoke, to put it bluntly, could be seen for hundreds of miles. In the city, it was as if a nation had been destroyed. Young Master Jiju was dragged out of bed by a king-level master. He rushed to the palace with sleepy eyes. The king-level expert had opened the way. So, everything went smoothly. It wasn't easy for them to enter the battle circle. So, they were about to unwillingly start the fight. However, they didn't expect that they would suddenly hear someone say, "Oh, Dog Ant! Motherfucker!" Jiju was stunned. He suddenly cursed and spat. Then, he turned around and left. "Young Master! Young Master!" The three king-level masters were puzzled. They hurriedly chased after him. Everyone was extremely depressed. This Grand Duke was too unambitious. He just came to take a look and left. Didn't he see that the other clans were fighting until their eyes were red? The Ji clan will withdraw from this fight. Jiju glared fiercely and roared in a low voice. "Whoever is disobedient, get lost!" After he finished speaking, he turned around and rushed back. On the way, he cursed, "Motherfucker! Motherfucker! Motherfucker, 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 motherfucker." Just as he left the palace, he bumped into Luo Kuwu. "Where are you going?" "I'm going back to sleep." "Why do you care?" Jishu rolled his eyes. Luo Kuwu was puzzled. "Going back to sleep? Going back to sleep at this time? Get out of the way. A good dog doesn't block the way." Young Master Jiju was in a bad mood. He felt that he had been tricked. "Who are you scolding?" Luo Kuwu glared and was about to fly into a rage. However, he was surrounded by the king-level masters of the clan. He only had time to say, "Jiju! You motherfucker, remember this! This time, I will remember you! This idiot!" Jiju spat in disdain. His saliva was spat out. Behind him, young Master Luo Kuwu and the others had already rushed into the thick smoke and fire. With a loud rumble, the main hall of the palace collapsed. No one knew who did it, but the main hall of the palace collapsed. GMO was finally unable to do anything. In fact, he was already exhausted. Under the pursuit of a group of sovereigns, it was not easy for him to persist until now. Unfortunately, the person he was waiting for hadn't arrived yet. He could only persevere. GMO jumped out of the fire, and was overjoyed when he saw it. "Wahahaha, he's here! He saw that Mo Tianyun was leading the experts of his clan to search this place from a short distance away. He was very handsome. Over there, Ao Sia-yun arrived with the king-level experts of the Ao clan. There were also several sovereigns from other clans rushing over like shooting stars. It was truly an opportunity bestowed by the heavens today. Spare me. Spare my life. I don't want this saber anymore. GMO suddenly screamed and jumped out. Mo Tianyun, Ao Sia-yun, Dong Wulei, Xia Dan-cheong, and the others looked towards them as soon as they came out. Their eyes revealed a fiery radiance. Here you go! Not waiting for anyone to answer, GMO had already thrown out his hand blade. Then, he turned around and fled. But who cared about him now? Everyone's eyes were attracted to the saber that was flying through the air. The sunlight saber emitted a dazzling light under the illumination of the fire. Everyone's eyes were burning as they flew along with the saber. It was not clear whether it was intentional or not, but sunlight saber flew towards Mo Tianyun. Impudent. Mine. Charge. Motherfucker. Snatch it from me. This sentence was shouted by Li Xiong-tu, the young master who had just arrived. His voice was so excited that it changed pitch. Kill. Mo Tianyun was overjoyed. Ao Sia-yun was shocked. Xia Dan-cheong's eyes flashed. Dong Wulei held the saber hilt. Luo Kuwu shouted and rushed forward. A king-level expert of the Mo clan jumped out in joy and reached out to grab the saber flying towards him. Mo Tianyun was already prepared. As soon as the saber was in his hand, he would immediately turn around and leave. He would not train anymore and return to Ping Three Heavens. Mo Tianyun had never thought that he would be able to get both the saber and the sword at this moment. But as long as he had Sunlight Saber, it meant that he had half the secret of becoming a martial saint. As for the other half, it could be a scheme, an exchange, or an alliance. He had plenty of methods. Stop! Stop him! Loud shouts were heard. Countless hidden weapons flew towards the Mo clan people at the same time. The hidden weapons were exploding. 3 king-level experts rushed out at the same time. A powerful energy storm was formed in an instant. The reaction of the 3 king-level experts could be said to be extremely fast and accurate at this critical moment. The sword and saber flashed at the same time and knocked the projectile to the side. The other person didn't care about his life anymore. He used his chi to protect his body and rushed towards the projectile and sunlight saber. Mo Tianyun's face showed a proud smile. They were the closest. At this moment, even if an immortal came, he would not be able to stop the Mo clan people from getting the saber first. It was at this moment that something inconceivable happened. The saber, which was flying at high speed in the air, suddenly stopped. It stopped in the air. Then, it suddenly flew back. Motherfucker. There are threads on the saber. Mo Tianyun cursed in a very rare fashion. His handsome face turned ferocious as he cursed loudly. This bastard. This bastard. This kind of treasure was about to be in his hands, but he missed it? Young Master Mo was about to collapse. At this moment, a silver coin flashed. Sunlight Saber, which was flying back at high speed, made a bang sound and fell from the sky. Ao Sia-yun still had a few copper coins left in his hand. Just now, he used a copper coin to break the threads on the saber. Now, the saber was slowly falling. And the place where it fell was between the Ao clan and the Mo clan. The king-level experts of the Ao clan and the Mo clan rushed forward like wolves and tigers. At this moment, there was a sudden bang. At the place where Sunlight Saber was about to fall, something exploded. A black fog with a sweet smell spread out. In an instant, it covered an area of 3 feet. The moment the black fog rose, Sunlight Saber finally fell to the ground with a bang sound. In the area covered by the black fog, a voice said with a smile, "Everyone, be careful. This is the bone-eroding bewitching fragrance. Once you touch it, your bones will turn into black water. Don't blame me for not warning you." All the experts stopped at the same time. the fastest king-level expert of the Mo clan, had already extended his hand into the black fog. He hastily retracted his hand, but his right palm had already turned jet black. Black water was flowing out from the tip of his fingers. It was so sore and itchy that he could not help but cry out. "Little poisonous thing!" Mo Tianyun and Ao Hua Yun roared at the same time. Their eyes were sharp as they turned their heads to look. A young man in black with a shy smile appeared at the edge of the circle. Behind him were two old men in black. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I already told you, but you still put your hand in," the young man in black said regretfully. This hand is about to turn into black water. What should I do? This is the hand of a king-level master." This young man looked weak and shy, but when he did things, he was extremely ruthless. Moreover, he didn't show any mercy at all. "Take out the antidote!" Mo Tianyun shouted angrily. The right hand of the king-level master of the Mo clan had already turned black and swollen. The black water was also flowing out faster and faster from his fingertips. Even with the power of a king-level master, he had no resistance against this poison. And now, the saber was surrounded by this poison. "Oh, I also want to take out the antidote, but I am greedy and want the saber." The black-robed youngster looked at Mo Tianyun in grief. "My strength is too weak. Brother Mo, please lend me a hand, okay?" Mo Tianyun almost fainted from anger. However, his eyes revealed an extremely conflicted expression. As long as he got Sunlight Saber, it would be time for the Mo clan to soar. But the injured king-level master in front of him was an important expert of the Mo clan. If he did not save him, wouldn't he be disappointed? "Brother Mo, could it be that this broken saber is more important than the life of a king-level master of your clan?" The young man in black blinked and said. The muscles on Mo Tianyun's face twitched. His expression changed a dozen times in an instant. In the dark, Chu Yang's attention was focused on the black-robed youth. Looking at this guy's carefree and ruthless appearance, Chu Yang had already come to a conclusion in his heart. It seems that this guy is the future one of the 12 influential figures of the three heavens, poison spirit. He looked at the saber on the ground. At this moment, the black fog was gradually thinning. It was still the closest to the Mo clan. He would be able to grab it with a single leap. Mo Tianyun's eyes flashed with a struggling expression. Suddenly, he yelled with anger. "Uncle Chingui! I have let you down today! For the sake of the Mo clan, I order you to take Sunlight Saber!" The injured king-level master was the Mo clan's king-level master, Mo Chingui. According to seniority, he was Mo Tianyun's uncle. Ao Xie Yun's eyes showed a vigilant expression. Mo Tianyun's ruthlessness was on full display at this moment. For the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan. Mo Chingui's eyes flashed with sadness. He knew that the other party used poison to threaten him to get the Mo clan's help. Since Mo Tianyun had already rejected the other party's offer, it meant that his life was already gone. Chapter 263. Before he could finish his sentence, Mo Chingui's eyes turned into two black holes. His mouth was full of rotten white teeth. His whole body turned into a black liquid. This bone-eroding poison fog was so tyrannical. He screamed and gathered the last of his strength into his left hand. He slapped his own forehead. Kacha! Blood splattered everywhere and turned into a black fog. His whole body fell down. The Mo clan had just started the fight and already lost the king-level master. Mo Tianyun jumped up and took out a snow-white bee's skin. He wrapped it around the incoming Sunlight Saber and said without batting an eyelid, "Charge out." He did not even look at his uncle's body that was turning into black liquid. Ao Xie Yun roared. "Stop the people of the Mo clan." Xie Dan Qiong, Li Xiong too, and the others shouted. Young Poison Spirit gritted his teeth and waved his hand. The two old men behind him also took out their sabers and swords. Seashore from the various great clans rushed towards the Mo clan's people. Gu Yen Yang! Gu Yen Yu! Help me stop them! Mo Tianyun screamed and rushed out without a care. He shouted, "The secret of Sunlight Saber, I, Mo Tianyun, promise that the Gu clan will have a share. I, Mo Tianyun, swear to the heavens that if I go against it, the heavens will abandon me." In front of so many people, Mo Tianyun swore an oath in order to get Sunlight Saber. Gu Yen Yang and Gu Yen Yang became spirited. Moreover, the two clans were allies to begin with. They would help each other, advance and retreat together. Moreover, there would be such a huge benefit. So, the two of them would kill Gu Duxing first if they were to obtain this benefit. Then, the two brothers would divide the country equally. Gu Duxing's talent was extraordinary. Leaving him alive would be a big problem in the future. The two brothers seemed to have eaten an aphrodisiac. They screamed, "Stop them!" Then they rushed forward. The two king-level masters of the Gu clan had bitter expressions on their faces. "You two idiots! Why did you let Mo Tianyun use the Gu clan until it became dregs?" In an instant, the battle between the king-level masters erupted like a volcano. Without any warning, it became a mess. And it wasn't just one or two, but dozens of them. At this moment, Great Zhao's imperial palace had truly become an imperial palace. Looking at the sky, there were a total of 50 crowns shining brightly. He was moving. He was risking his life. In the history of the lower three heavens, which kingdom's imperial palace could have such a grand scene? Only Great Zhao. Only Great Zhao. After this battle, the Great Zhao kingdom would be immortalized in the history of the lower three heavens. Even though the royal family of Great Zhao wanted to cry but had no tears, but this was also a kind of glory, right? At the end of this affair, when the curtain fell on the struggle for hegemony between the two countries, a famous poet wrote a poem about what had happened that night, on a cold winter night with a full moon. The stars rest together, the saber tilted to cause chaos. All the princes congregate, corpses piled up like mountains. Blood flowed like the sea, a fist rushed towards the heavens. One sword she bullfighting, thrones were everywhere. Wu Zun was inferior to a dog. Take a look at the broken bones and flesh. All of them could be conferred the title of Marquis. The two countries came to war. They both attacked and defended each other. The universe overturned itself. There was only autumn in the 4 seasons. Great Zhao's hegemony withered. Diwu is too gentle. The rise and fall of ancient times. All in the hands of the king of hell. Cough, cough, so wet, so wet. At this moment, the Great Zhao royal palace was bustling with noise and excitement. GMO had already completed his mission, but he was also exhausted. He pointed towards a direction, and then GMO Butong appeared like a ghost. He carried GMO on his back and ran. From this moment on, the two of them would officially leave the lower three heavens. Chu Yang hid in the shadows and watched the two of them leave. His eyes were full of emotions. "Thank you, my brothers! If not for you, I would have suffered a crushing defeat in this chaotic place. We will meet again in the upper three heavens. At that time, we will fight side by side." The so-called sunlight saber had already been used. Chu Yang nimbly changed out of his white clothes and put on a black mask. Under the mask, there was even a wisp of beard. Just by looking at this masked man, he should not be young. Now was the best time to fish in troubled waters. This opportunity was not to be missed. And Mo Tianyun, would he die here? Today, could he give Gu Duxing a big gift? Chu Yang was eager to try. The king-level experts of the Gu clan were already struggling left and right. And the king-level experts of the Mo clan were rushing left and right. But they were still blocked. King-level masters of more than 20 great clans were all gathered here. What chance did they have to escape? Mo Tianyun continued to use his bow to lure, split up, sneak attack, and plot, but he still could not get out. Because in the end, the one who blocked his way was Ao Xieyun, who he knew very well. When these two rivals met, Mo Tianyun immediately shut up. No matter what he said to this guy, it was like playing the lute to a cow. He would not believe him. So, there was no need to waste time and effort. Amo Tian Yun, leave Sunlight Saber, Ao Xie Yun said indifferently. Although his voice wasn't loud, it was arrogant and bossy. It was as if he was commanding someone from a higher position. If it were you, would you stay? Amo Tian Yun snorted. How many king-level masters does your Mo clan have? Ao Xie Yun snorted coldly. In front of so many people, no one dares to kill a clan heir like you and me. This is true. However, your clan's masters are not included. If they die, they will die for nothing. If they all die, do you think you can keep Sunlight Saber? Whether I can keep it or not, I will have to try to know. Amo Tian Yun said coldly. Ao Xie Yun, do you think these people are with you? Which one of them does not want Sunlight Saber? Even if it is in your hands, would it not be a fight? Then why don't you just shift the blame to me? Ao Xie Yun smiled. Humph. You are not worthy. Amo Tian Yun rolled his eyes. Shift the blame to you? Who would shift the blame to you unless they were at the end of their rope? Suddenly a scream came from the field. A king-level master of the Gu clan suddenly fell down. On his chest, a beautiful viburnum flower bloomed. Outside the field, Xie Dan Qiong, who had been watching the fight, was pale. He gasped for breath. Just now, 2 king-level masters of the Gu clan had surrounded a king-level master of the Xie clan. The situation was not good. If there was an opening here, the Mo clan could follow the Gu clan and rush out. Therefore, Xie Dan Qiong used all his strength and shot out his own secret weapon. Viburnum flower! When the viburnum flower comes out, 100 flowers go out. With Xie Dan Qiong's current strength, he could only use one attack. But it was this one attack that destroyed a king-level master. The remaining king-level master of the Gu clan screamed like a madman. He abandoned his position to protect the 2 dukes. He roared and cursed as he flew towards Xie Dan Qiong on his sword. The 2 king-level masters of the Xie clan jumped up at the same time and blocked in the air. At this moment, Ao Xie Yun, Li Xiong Tu, and Xie Dan Qiong all felt a sense of danger. They could not help but look up. Gu Yen Yang and Gu Yen Yu were still yelling. Kill him! Kill him! A sharp sword wind suddenly appeared. This sword seemed to carry with it an ancient desolation. Millions of cold lights flashed in the cold night sky. A black shadow wearing black clothes and a black mask appeared. Under the black mask, there was a wisp of beard fluttering in the wind. But this black shadow carried with it an unstoppable cold light, and suddenly rushed out from the fire. Rushed out from the fire that soared to the sky. A sword faintly visible in his hand, transformed into a dragon that soared through the clouds. Rushed into the crowd. Wherever this sword went, even a king-level master would feel cold all over. Everyone had a feeling, this sword absolutely did not belong to the human world. This was a sword from the heavens. A sword from the demons. A sword from the underworld. Even if there was a mountain in front of this sword would still be able to cut it into pieces. Everyone was shocked. The king-level masters who were in the middle of a fierce battle could not help but dodge. Millions of cold lights, carrying with them an aura that could devour the heavens, rushed in. Unimpeded, it rushed over the heads of the 13 king-level masters. Then, with a flash of blood, the cold light suddenly flashed in the air like a bolt of lightning. It slanted into the sky, turned in the air, and disappeared like a meteor. This sword, from the beginning to the end, only took a short time, not even enough to blink an eye. The sword light was far away, but the chill on everyone's body was not yet gone. Who would be able to execute such a sword move? Who could block it? There was no lack of king-level masters among the experts present. But now, even king-level masters were sweating profusely. Everyone closed their eyes to recall this sword, and a feeling of powerlessness rose in their hearts. If the target of this sword had been me, I wouldn't have been able to dodge it. Only 3 necks would have been waiting to be slaughtered. Not good! Ao Xie Yun shouted. Whose sword is it? Everyone suddenly woke up from a dream. This sword had suddenly appeared, and was not without a purpose. But who was its target? All the king-level masters were shocked, and looked at the young master they were protecting. But they felt relieved after a glance. The young master is fine. But at this time, "Young master! Young master, what happened to you?" a mournful voice echoed. Everyone's body shook, and they looked in the direction of the voice. They saw that the only remaining king-level master of the Gu clan was crying out in grief and indignation. Suddenly he raised his head, and tragically roared, "Heavens! How can this be?" In front of him, the two brothers, Gu Yen-yang and Gu Yen-yu, were standing there like wooden chickens. Their eyes were ashen and filled with disbelief, but their throats were spurting out thin lines of blood like fountains. This sword had killed two people at the same time, the two young masters of the Gu clan. The two heirs of the Gu clan. There were only two of them. After this sword, it could be said that the Gu clan had no more descendants. Amo Tianyun looked at the king-level master of the Gu clan, who was screaming in pain. His body involuntarily trembled, and his eyes were filled with fear. Everyone was dumbstruck. This bow and sword came like thunder and left like lightning. Everyone only had time to see a black-clothed and masked figure. They couldn't even see the figure clearly. The only impression they had was the fluttering beard under the mask. Where could they find the culprit? Chu Yan had already left the royal palace. After releasing this sword, he immediately left. No matter what happened here, it had nothing to do with him. This sword was, one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. Chapter 264. It was not that Chu Yang did not want to kill Mo Tianyun, but Mo Tianyun had a king-level master protecting him. This sword relied on its sharpness. As long as it was blocked, it would return empty-handed. With Chu Yang's current strength, he could not break through to the point where he could kill a king-level master and Mo Tianyun. Also, if he did not succeed, he would face the danger of being left behind. There were dozens of king-level masters present, and Chu Yang only had the strength for one attack. If he was left behind, then it would all be over. Of course, Chu Yang had to choose something he was 100% sure of. Gu Yen-yang and Gu Yen-yang's royal guards had one dead and one separated. There was no one more suitable targets than these two. He did not have the confidence to kill Mo Tianyun, so he decided to give Gu Du-xing a big present. Kill Gu Yen-yang and Gu Yen-yu. One sword strike like thunder. One sword strike complete. He immediately retreated. Even after he had retreated for a long time, the place was still silent. The crackling sounds of the flames all around made the place even more noisy. Gu Yen-yang and Gu Yen-yu did not say a word from beginning to end. Their throats gurgled as they looked in front of them in disbelief. Then, they slowly fell down facing the sky. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they looked up at the sky. Frozen. Even in death, the two of them had never imagined that they would be killed by an assassin in such a place where there was absolutely no danger at all. Shouldn't they be fighting for Sunlight Saber? Shouldn't they be paying attention to Mo Tianyun and Ao Xiayun? Shouldn't they be? How could this be? How could this be? The two bodies fell down with a loud bang. Eternal darkness covered all their questions. The king-level master of the Gu clan stood there in a daze. In that moment, he felt like he was in a nightmare. 4 people came from the Gu clan, 2 dukes and 2 king-level masters. But in the blink of an eye, the other king-level master was killed by Xia Dan-xiong on the spot. And the other 2 dukes were killed in less than a second after the death of the king-level master. She was the only one left. Mo Tianyun and Ao Xiayun looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The terror of this sword caused the two of them to feel a chill in their hearts. The two of them thought, if I didn't have any guards by my side and had to face the enemy's attack like Gu Yen-yang and the rest, what would happen to me? Thinking of this, a chill ran down his spine. That king-level expert of the Gu clan ferociously stamped his feet. Then, he stooped down, and piled up the 3 corpses one by one. He then carried them on his shoulder. Then, he looked at Xia Dan Qiong with hatred in his eyes. Then, he didn't say a word, and walked out in large strides. Go back. Take his brother's bones, take his young master's body, and return. Someone had to report this matter to the family. Even though it would be a dead end for him if he went back, he still had to bring this matter back. The main culprit had become Xia Dan Qiong. Xia Dan Qiong had killed a king-level expert. Moreover, he had diverted another king-level expert. Even Ao Xia Yun and Mo Tian Yun wouldn't believe that this assassination had nothing to do with Xia Dan Qiong. This was clearly planned for a long time. I diverted him, and you killed him. Plus, Xia Dan Qiong's fiancée had been crazily pursued by Gu Yenyang. How could the arrogant Xia Dan Qiong not be angry? He had every reason to kill Gu Yenyang. Even though this matter seemed unrelated on the surface, the more unrelated the matter was, the more related it was. Watching the king-level expert leave, Xia Dan Qiong's face was gloomy. Only he knew. This time, he was carrying a huge black pot. Even though he wanted to kill Gu Yenyang, even though he was angry because of this matter and killed a king-level expert of the Gu clan, he really didn't do anything to Gu Yenyang. But he didn't say anything. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Mo Tian Yun. He gravely said, Mo Tian Yun, brother Mo, I want Sunlight Saber. His voice was cold and full of killing intent. The meaning of the threat was clear. If you don't give it to me, I will kill you. I dared to kill Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu. I don't care if I kill Mo Tian Yun. If you don't obey, Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu will serve as an example. Xia Dan Qiong knew that he was being framed, but he couldn't defend himself. While he couldn't defend himself, he took advantage of this misunderstanding. Didn't you think it was my people who did it? Fine, I won't admit it, but I won't deny it either. But I want the saber. Mo Tian Yun's face changed. Could it be that Xia Dan Qiong dared to let the assassin kill him again? This was something he had to guard against. He immediately signaled with his eyes. The two king-level experts of the Mo clan immediately stood in front and behind him. Xia Dan Qiong, you are so crazy! In the training grounds, you are not allowed to kill your clan's younger brothers. It seems that you don't care about that. Mo Tian Yun's pupils shrank. Brother Mo, we are all sensible people. Xia Dan Qiong coldly said. You give? Or not? Presumptuous! The two remaining king-level experts of the Mo clan angrily shouted. Elder Xia, with our elder's status, how can your Xia clan touch him? Brother Ao! Xia Dan Qiong raised his eyebrows. He ignored the two king-level experts and said, Brother Ao, I will share the secret of the saber with you as long as you agree to stand on the sidelines. Brother Xia, I will also share the secret of the saber with you as long as you agree to stand on the sidelines. Ao Xia Yun slightly smiled. What do you think? Ha ha ha, Brother Ao is very funny. Xia Dan Qiong's expression turned cold as he laughed out loud. I guarantee that everyone will get a copy of the secret of the saber as long as you stand on the sidelines and let me take it. Tu Qianhao strode forward and laughed loudly. Get out of my way! This saber belongs to me, Li Xiong too. Li Xiong too fiercely rushed him with his curly beard. He extended his hand to grab the leather package in Mo Tian Yun's hand. Mo Tian Yun roared. He shook his hand, and a colorful chain came out of his sleeve. It made a bang sound in the air, and went towards Li Xiong too like a thunderbolt. The two king-level experts of the Mo clan attacked at the same time. The two king-level experts of the Li clan roared like thunder, and rushed forward. Xia Dan Qiong waved his hand and the Xia clan's experts also rushed forward. Ao Xia Yun heaved a long sigh and shouted, Grab it! The three Ao clan's experts behind him also rushed forward. Tu Qianhao laughed out loud and said, Lively! Extremely lively! He waved his hand, and the two clan also joined the battle. The other big clans also joined in one after another. They couldn't tell who their opponents were, and started to fight. The young poison spirit stood far away from the battle, and looked at the scene. His eyes were like two poisonous snakes, coldly looking back and forth. The sound of horses' hooves shook the sky. The great Zhao's army had arrived. The sound of fighting echoed from the periphery. The people of Jiang who had already started to fight with the army. A thunderous shout was heard. "Everyone inside, stop! Otherwise, you will be killed!" The two old king-level experts behind Poison Spirit laughed out loud. They went forward and said disdainfully, "The 10 clans of the 3 heavens are doing something here. Anyone who dares to obstruct will be killed without mercy." The leading general was stunned. He looked at the dozens of dazzling crowns in the sky and was speechless for a long time. At this moment, a crown appeared in the sky from afar and shouted, "Prime Minister Diwu has ordered the army to retreat quickly. Everything here will be decided by the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Diwu will bear all the consequences." It was the 4th king-level master of Golden Horse Riders Hall, Wu Tian. With such a guarantee, the people inside fought even more recklessly. Amo Tianyun became more and more embarrassed. Seeing that the treasured saber was about to be lost, he suddenly screamed and threw the saber into the air. He shouted, "Whoever has the ability can take it." Ao Xiayun frowned. Sunlight saber spun in the air and rose straight up. Amo Tianyun's throw was very big. He threw the saber dozens of feet high. Everyone stopped at the same time. Sunlight saber began to fall. 40 or 50 figures jumped up at the same time. They rose into the air and fought with each other. It was extremely brilliant. The saber was about to fall, but the winner had not been decided yet. A king-level master shouted and suddenly struck Xiang Yan with his palm. Suddenly, Sunlight saber flew high into the air again. Thus, the saber fell and flew up again. It fell again and flew up again. Below, more than 50 king-level masters fought to be the first to use their big moves. A king-level master of the Li clan screamed and rolled out like a ball. Li Xiong too was furious and shouted, "Fuck your ancestors! Who did this?" However, the clamor of the crowd and the incessant cursing and swearing drowned out his words immediately. Amo Tianyun threw out the saber and immediately retreated to the side. Under his signal, the 2 king-level masters of the Mo clan also temporarily withdrew from the battle. Standing on the side, Mo Tianyun's eyes flashed as he watched the battle. At the same time, Dong Wulei and Xie Danqiong also took their people and left. Who did not know Mo Tianyun's intentions? This guy clearly wanted to take advantage of the situation. But everyone wanted to take advantage of the situation. Ao Xiayun frowned and shouted, "Everyone stop! Please listen to me. We cannot continue to fight like this. I have a plan that can prevent unnecessary fights." The other dukes also felt the same. They all shouted to stop. Everyone formed a circle. Sunlight saber fell from the sky. With a clang, the tip of the saber fell to the ground. With a schwa sound, it penetrated the thick stone floor. Even the handle of the saber was gone. Only a hole was left on the ground. All the dukes sucked in a breath of cold air. What a sharp knife! Their eyes were burning with passion. Not to mention the secret of the saber itself was already a rare treasure in the world. "We have 10 clans here." Ao Xiayun stepped forward and said, "I have calculated carefully. If we count the clans here according to their alliances, there are 7 alliances. Each has their own allies. I propose that each alliance send out 1 person to compete. The winner will be the king. The winner will get Sunlight Saber and no one will object. How about it?" "Nonsense! You, Ao Xiayun, must have prepared an expert to win. That's why you said that. Who would be fooled by you? Fair competition? Is there any fairness in this world?" Amo Tianyun shouted. "This is clearly your scheme." Amo Tianyun was both angry and anxious. A king-level master died for no reason, and he couldn't get his hands on Sunlight's saber. He finally found an opportunity to throw the saber and take advantage of the situation, but Ao Xiayun saw through his plan. Chapter 265. But Amo Tianyun's words were very popular. Most people had the same thought. Since Mo Tianyun suggested it, why would he suggest it if he didn't have control over himself? Many people clamored. I think it's feasible. Li Xiongtu shouted and looked around. In my opinion, there is no need for the alliances to send out representatives. Let the aristocratic families fight one by one. The winner will get Sunlight Saber. What do you think? Everyone present was the first duke of each aristocratic family, the successor of the sun. Every one of them had their eyes on the top of their heads and thought highly of themselves. Who would admit that they were inferior to others? Li Xiongtu's words immediately attracted a lot of response. Good. Ao Xie Yun smiled helplessly and said, That's good. However, this matter should be done sooner rather than later. No one can take this saber back, not even the aristocratic families. I guarantee that this saber will still be there after one night. Why don't we compete with the aristocratic families right here and now? Brother Ao is right. Tu Qianhao immediately agreed. Li Xiongtu strode out and said to the soldiers who were still outside, Get a few of you here. Hurry up and clear the place. Get your emperor and empress out. We're taking over this place. Everyone couldn't help but roll their eyes when they heard the tone of the King of Darkness. We are taking this place? Bro, the place I'm talking about is the royal palace of a country, but all the officials felt very satisfied, so what if it is the royal palace? We are taking it. That is taking it. Since ancient times, no one has taken the royal palace. Haha, this is the first time since the beginning of time. The leading general immediately turned red. He was so angry that his chest was about to explode. It has always been the government taking the people. Since when was the royal palace taken by others? In his anger, he was about to give the order to attack without hesitation. General Xiao, do as this official says. Following an elegant voice, Du Wuqing slowly approached on a horse. Bring the emperor and the others out. Then, he cupped his hands towards Ao Xie Yun and Mo Tianyun and said with a smile, This time, we will take a step back. The royal palace can be temporarily handed over to you. However, after this matter, you must give me, Du Wuqing, a punishment. Li Xiongtu snorted coldly. His curly beard trembled as he said indifferently, What if we don't give you this method? Du Wuqing narrowed his eyes and said, Then, even the great clans of the three heavens will have to give this old man a punishment. His voice was resolute and decisive, and it actually carried a faint murderous aura. Seeing that the lawless Li Xiongtu was about to fall out with Du Wuqing, Ao Xie Yun hurriedly came out to mediate. Prime Minister, your words are too serious. We had no choice but to borrow the palace this time. After this matter, no matter what, I will definitely give you an explanation. He glared fiercely at Li Xiongtu and scolded in a low voice. Idiot! Once the situation turns sour, this saber will become Great Xiao's. Li Xiongtu repeatedly agreed. He clasped his hands nervously and said without thinking, Prime Minister is indeed far-sighted, wise and heroic, handsome and suave that. A man of striking appearance, devastatingly beautiful, peerless and unparalleled. But Ao Xian twisted his ear and pulled him back. He was both angry and amused. Just a moment ago, this guy was scolding her, and now, he was praising her without any sincerity at all. Du Wuqing had a good temperament, but he was so angry that the muscles on his face started to twitch. He flicked his sleeves and said, That's it. He turned his head and shouted, General Xiao, what are you waiting for? Then he turned around and left. If he stayed here any longer, Du Wuqing reckoned that he would be angered to death by Li Xiongtu before he was killed by King of Hell Chu. While Great Xiao was organizing the evacuation, they were formally discussing how to divide the spoils. The entire royal palace has been burning until now. This royal palace has basically been declared to be scrapped. Even if the fire was put out now, only broken walls and broken tiles would be left. It would be better to leave it as a source of light for them. General Xiao waved his hand and angrily left with his soldiers. Now, a duke wants to participate in the battle. Ao Xie Yun held a lot in his hand and said, Great Xiao's family comes to me to draw lots. One person will get a buy-in every round. Don't kill him. Moreover, the next round will start after a quarter of an hour after the end of the round. In other words, the remaining people will lose their qualifications to compete in the first round. Then, 5 people will be selected in the second round. 3 people will be selected in the third round. And, the owner of the treasured saber will be decided in the fourth round. In Tianyun coldly said. At this moment, a shy and astringent voice said, Brother Ao, Brother Mo, may I ask if poison can be used in this competition? Mo Tianyun fiercely looked over as if he had been bitten by a poisonous snake when he heard these words. If looks could kill, Mo Tianyun would have already dismembered this guy who had just spoken. It was Poison Spirit who had spoken. Poison. Oh Du Xiao. Ao Xia Yun also had a headache. Is there an antidote for all the poisons? Of course. Oh Du Xiao blinked. Bastard. And Mo Tianyun angrily shouted. Is there an antidote for the bone-eroding fog? There is no such antidote. Oh Du Xiao shamelessly said. But it can be alleviated. It needs to be alleviated every 10 days, damn it. Li Xiong Tu and Tu Gon Hao cursed at the same time. Once poisoned, if they did not want to turn into black water, wouldn't they become O Du Xiao's slave? Since there is an antidote, you can join. Ao Xia Yun made the final decision and said, Come, let's draw lots. If there is one left, it will be mine. Thus, under Ao Xia Yun's leadership, the 10 great clans began to draw lots for the competition. Perhaps even Ao Xia Yun himself didn't expect that other than a few unexpected clans, the drawing of lots this time would actually faintly determine the ranking of the clans in the next 3 days. It was the same as the results of the competition. While the royal palace was in full swing fighting for Sunlight Saber, Chu Yan had already returned to Heaven-reaching Tower. He had changed his clothes and taken a bath. There was a cup of tea in front of him. The fragrance of the tea rose in spirals. He held a book in his hand and crossed his legs. He was very relaxed. After a while, Guda, the fastest, Du Xing, finally came back. How is it over there? Chu Yan asked. It's over there already? So fast? Gu Du Xing asked in surprise. They should still be fighting for the saber, but my matter has temporarily come to an end. Chu Yan casually said. The royal palace is finished. According to what I saw with my own eyes, there were probably a few concubines and officials who were buried there. There were about 30,000 people who died around the royal palace. That's all. Cough, cough. Gu Du Xing choked. That's all? Are you still not satisfied? I am a little dissatisfied. Because these clans and the army will not fight in the 3 heavens. Chu Yang said with some dissatisfaction. If they fight, it would be even better. If they really fight, then there would be no need for King of Hell Chu. Gu Du Xing sneered. It was unknown whether it was praise or derision. My side is fine. Dong Wushang is still preparing, Gu Du Xing said. Dong Wushang wants to detonate the Moonlight Sword at the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department. That's a good idea. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and laughed. Remember, we must take advantage of this opportunity to release all the people that Diwu Qingro captured. Even if we can't release all of them, we must at least release some of them. Otherwise, this plan will ultimately fail. Don't worry. Gu Du Xing grinned and said excitedly. Let me tell you a piece of good news. After talking with Jia Wushang, I suddenly comprehended the principles of the saber and sword. I'm afraid that it won't be long before I become a 3rd-grade revered sword. That's really good news. Chu Yao praised. I also have a piece of good news to tell you. What is it? Gu Du Xing asked. He had not yet woken up from the pleasant surprise of breaking through. Cough, cough, Gu Yanyang is dead. Chu Yang coughed twice and said, I killed him. Gu Du Xing was immediately dumbstruck. Gu Yanyang is dead? You killed him? After a long time, Gu Du Xing looked at Chu Yang with a complicated expression. There was a hint of confusion and melancholy. There was also a hint of relief. I killed him! Chu Yang nodded affirmatively. What do you think? I'm just thinking, how could foster father accept this matter? Gu Duxing sat down in a daze. Gu Yen Yang's death is not regrettable. With his actions I wanted to kill him long ago, but I couldn't. Now, sigh. My heart is in a mess. If Sister Miao knew, she would be sad. There's one more thing, Chu Yang said quietly. What is it? Gu Duxing smiled bitterly. Gu Yenyu is also dead. Chu Yang looked up at him. I killed him. Gu Duxing stood up fiercely and gasped for breath. You really dare? Gu Duxing stood up like a horse that had taken aphrodisiac. He ran back and forth in the room for a while, dazzling Chu Yang's eyes. He kept repeating the same sentence over and over again. What should we do? What should I do? What should I do? Chu Yang said sympathetically. What should I do? Gu Duxing sat down dejectedly. His heart was suddenly at a loss. Dead? The two people who had bullied him since he was a child, who had set him up many times over the years, who had always wanted to kill him, were dead. Just like that? The two of them are dead. I only feel happy. But I'm just worried. How will foster father bear this matter? These two people were his sons. Even if they did not live up to expectations, they were still his flesh and blood. Gu Duxing sat down and held his head with both hands, his face full of pain. Killing the two of them is a gift from me, your brother, to you, Chu Yang said indifferently. A gift? Gu Duxing said in a daze. It's also a gift from me to foster father and the Gu clan. Chu Yang chuckled. Being the clan head is much better than the two of them. At least the future of the Gu clan will be guaranteed. Gu Miaoling will be able to make peace sooner. Gu Duxing did not know whether to laugh or cry. I know all this, but the problem is, what's the problem? Chu Yang spread out his hands. They're already dead, this thing is not grass. If you cut off its head, it will grow back. Chapter 266. There's another piece of good news, Chu Yang calmly said. No one knows that I killed them. Nonsense. Gu Duxing rolled his eyes. So you should prepare to avenge your brother. Chu Yang continued. If I'm not wrong, this time, your Gu clan will be up against the Xia clan. Xia clan? Gu Duxing scratched his head. What does this have to do with the Xia clan? Xia Danqiong killed one of your king-level masters. So, I attacked right after he attacked? The two of us closely cooperated. Our cooperation was flawless. And we killed 3 of the 4 people from your Gu clan in one fell swoop. Chu Yang mischievously laughed. Gu Duxing finally understood. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So this basin of dirty water was carried by young Master Xia Danqiong. You're absolutely right. Chu Yang snapped his fingers and sighed. Xia Danqiong is a good person. He did good deeds but still left his name behind. If you don't keep a low profile, can you? Gu Duxing sighed slightly. He looked at Chu Yang with a helpless expression. Chu Yang said it lightly, but how could Gu Duxing not know how big of a risk Chu Yang took? Chu Yang's cultivation was only that of a martial great master. A martial great master! But under the watchful eyes of 40 to 50 king-level masters, he killed 2 important people. Then, with a golden body, Gu Duxing didn't think about what methods Chu Yang used. But he only needed to think. He would break out in a cold sweat. What was Chu Yang's status now? To put it bluntly, Chu Yang's safety was directly related to the outcome of the war between the two countries. But he couldn't afford to make any mistakes, not even the slightest mishap. To put it more seriously, even if Chu Yang had caught a cold, a sneeze could affect his train of thought for a moment. It could lead to a problem in a certain area, but under such circumstances, Chu Yang dared to take the opportunity to kill Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu. Why? For his brother. For Gu Duxing. Because Chu Yang knew that his childhood misfortune was largely due to Gu Yenyang and his brother. Because Chu Yang knew that these two people hadn't given up on killing him until now. Because Chu Yang knew that with these two people around, he would never be able to stand out in the Gu clan. Because they were the direct descendants of the Gu family. If the two of them were capable, Gu Duxing wouldn't have said anything. But Ran Ti found that the two of them were worthless. Moreover, they were jealous of others' ability. They played with power and were vicious and merciless, treacherous and cunning. Therefore, the reason why Chu Yang struck this time was all because of Gu Duxing. Gu Duxing never said any words of thanks. There was no need to say it, much less say it out loud. However, he would remember this favor. Although this matter wasn't done openly, it was done once and for all. Gu Duxing's future troubles would be removed from the root forever. If it were up to Gu Duxing himself, he would probably not lay a hand on these two people in this lifetime out of consideration for his foster father's kindness. The night passed in silence. Until tomorrow morning, the battle in the imperial city finally came to an end. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing's white robes fluttered in the wind as they stood in front of the imperial palace. They really didn't know how intense the battle was last night. The entire imperial palace was still covered in thick smoke, but it was basically a pile of ruins. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that there wasn't even a complete palace left. The imperial palace was completely destroyed. The one who reaped the most benefits was probably Chu Yang. Because after entering the imperial palace last night, he helped GMO a few times. After seeing that there weren't any problems, he turned around and went to the treasury. How could Minister Chu let go of such a heaven-sent opportunity to fish in troubled waters? The guards of the treasury were already scared out of their wits. Chu Yang had the calamity sword in his hand, so how sharp was it? He directly cut open a big hole and went in. This time was of the essence, and there was no time to absorb it. But Chu Yang had the calamity space now. He waved his hand. "Collect for me! Collect for me!" After shouting like this a few dozen times, the treasury was empty. Then he went out. Otherwise, how could he have rushed out through the thick smoke and fire to kill Gu Yang and his brother? What the kings and dukes of the 10 great clans didn't know was, the place where the fire burned the brightest was where the imperial palace's treasury was located. It was close to noon. 3 figures walked out of the imperial palace dejectedly. It was the young master of the Luo clan, Luo Kuwu. He was cursing and swearing all the way. His eyes were purple like a panda's. From afar, he could be heard shouting, "Motherfucker, too despicable! Too despicable! This bastard Xie Dan Qiong, he actually dared to trick me! If it wasn't for—" Behind him, another male came out. His hair was disheveled, and he gritted his teeth. "Motherfucker, why am I so unlucky? The moment I went on stage, I met this little poisonous thing. Motherfucker, how am I supposed to play?" Then Tu Qian Hao came out with a sour face. Without a sound, he walked away. "Arrogant my ass! Didn't you also not get it?" Luo Kuwu spat behind him, provoking him with a threatening gesture. His stomach was full of anger, and he was ready to vent it all on his opponent. Tu Qian Hao fiercely turned around and glared at Luo Kuwu as if he wanted to eat him. Luo Kuwu didn't show any weakness. He stuck out his chest and shouted, "Tu Qian Hao! You don't agree?" Tu Qian Hao angrily spat and said, "If it wasn't for your elder sister's sake, I would have been an old man." He then turned around and walked away. Luo Kuwu became furious. He chased after him and shouted, "You and my elder sister haven't become intimate yet. Fuck! You really think of yourself as my brother-in-law? Fuck! You're calling me an old man?" Luo Kuwu spoke till here, and suddenly jumped up like an explosive. "Stop! Today, I'm going to ask you, are you going to marry my sister or my aunt? Stop! Stop! Stop!" Tu Qian Hao ignored him, and walked away. The corner of Chu Yang's mouth twitched as he saw this. This brother-in-law and this little uncle are really TSK. I finally understand why Luo Kudi is so unruly. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and said with a profound look in his eyes, "I also understand. Gu Duxing looked at Luo Kuwu and nodded cautiously. Then, he heavily sighed and said, "If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Perhaps his foundation isn't here." Chu Yang's eyes seemed to be contemplating something. He seemed to be racking his brains. "This statement is very reasonable." Gu Duxing frowned. But he nodded honestly. "Perhaps it's his father." Then Du Shao came out. This future poison spirit was in a tragic state. His left eye was black and blue, and his right eye was red. His clothes were torn, and half of his snow-white thighs were exposed. Half of his buttocks were faintly discernible as they twisted. They were full of vague beauty. He limped as he walked, and muttered, "I'm so unlucky! I ran into Ao Xie Yun, this abnormal person who isn't afraid of poison." Li Xiongtu fell down with a bang sound. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. 2 king-level experts of the Li clan followed him, and caught him. "Young master, are you alright?" "Fuck! How many times have I told you to call me Hero Li?" Li Xiongtu opened his eyes wide like a bandit. Then, he turned his head and shouted, "Amo Tian Yun! I won't let you off! Let's wait and see." A few more people came out one after another. Then, Xia Danqiong, one of the 12 peerless, also came out with a gloomy face. His handsome face was still white and clean, but his clothes were worse than a beggar's. He didn't say a word, and sped away. These people who came out had one thing in common. They obviously saw Chu Yang and Gu Duxing in snow-white clothes, but none of them came forward to greet them. These guys were all proud and arrogant. They all thought, "You are from the upper 3 heavens, and we are from the lower 3 heavens. We belong to 2 different worlds. Our paths are different." Moreover, they were embarrassed to come forward and greet them in such a sorry state. It was already bad enough to lose face in the lower 3 heavens. If they lost face in the upper 3 heavens, they waited for a long time, but no one came out. Chu Yang and Gu Duxing were getting impatient. Then, they saw 3 more people come out. Amo Tianyun and his 2 king-level masters of the Mo clan came out with dejected faces. Their faces were gloomy. It seemed that they didn't get anything. "Let's go!" Amo Tianyun coldly snorted. Just as they were about to leave, they saw Chu Yang. Amo Tianyun rolled his eyes and came forward to greet them. His face was full of enthusiasm. "The 2 Chu masters are nothing. We just want to see if that saber's real." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Master Mo, what are you doing?" He looked at the eye-catching 5-finger marks on Mo Tianyun's face. "Cough, cough. My skills are not as good as others." "Ao Xia Yun, sigh." Mo Tianyun sighed. It was as if he couldn't bear to look back on the past. Then, he blinked and said, "That saber is in Ao Xia Yun's hands." Mo Tianyun naturally knew the purpose of these 2 Chu masters of the upper 3 heavens. When he saw them come, he immediately said something about Ao Xia Yun. "If I can't get it, you, Ao Xia Yun, won't have it easy either." Chu Yang understood and nodded. He comforted him meaningfully. "Brother Mo, don't be discouraged. Even if you can't get this saber, isn't there still a sword?" How could Chu Yang not understand Mo Tianyun's sinister intentions? On the side, Gu Duxing had some disdain in his heart. So many people passed by and no one said anything. "You, Mo Tianyun, just came out and you're already snitching." When Mo Tianyun heard Chu Yang's words, his eyes brightened. He laughed and said, "Master Chu, I'll take my leave first." "Brother Mo, please." Chu Yang smiled warmly and cupped his hands. Finally, in the thick smoke and fire, Ao Xia Yun and the 3 king-level masters of the Ao clan walked out laughing. On his shoulder, there was a long and narrow leather bag. It was the sunlight saber that had caused such a fierce fight. It seemed that it had fallen into the hands of the Ao clan. When he saw Chu Yang, Ao Xia Yun's face was slightly unnatural. He immediately went forward and said warmly, "Brother Chu?" Chu Yang smiled and said gracefully, "Brother Ao, can I take a look at this saber?" When these words came out, the 3 king-level masters of the Ao clan all showed a cautious expression. They looked at Chu Jiang with vigilant eyes. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. What's wrong with that? Ao Xianyun casually took the saber off his shoulder and generously handed it over. Since the other party had made such an open and above-board request, he definitely wouldn't snatch it. If he said he wanted to take a look, then he would take a look. Ao Xianyun was well aware of this point. Chapter 267. On the blade, there was a symbol of the sun. Naturally, Chu Yan was very clear about this, because he had carved it with his own hands. But at this moment, Chu Yang seemed to have discovered a new continent. He looked at the symbol with deep eyes and pondered for a long time. After a long time, he returned the blade and said, "Thank you for your trust, Brother Ao." Ao Xianyun said, "Brother Chu, you don't need to be so polite. This blade was snatched from someone else. If Brother Chu likes it, you can take it and study it for a few days." Chu Jiang laughed and repeatedly declined. He thought, if I really take it and run away, I can guarantee that you will immediately fight me. Ao Xianyun took back the blade and said with a smile, "Regarding the secret of this blade, I have already studied it for a while, but I still couldn't find anything. Does Brother Chu have any advice?" "I really don't have any," Chu Jiang said sincerely. "However, I seem to have heard that this sunlight saber needs to be used together with the moonlight sword to display its full power. But the rumor has been around for so many years, whether it is true or not, I am not sure." Ao Xianyun's eyes flashed with a strange light and said meaningfully, "Brother Chu is right." So the three of them returned side by side. On the way back, they saw a banner fluttering in the wind. It was Diwu Qingrou's arrival. Since this matter had come to an end, Diwu Qingrou naturally wanted to take a look. With a shout, the oncoming troops stopped and the cavalry immediately separated to two sides, revealing a carriage. The curtain of the carriage was lifted and Diwu Qingrou was seen sitting peacefully in the carriage. Seeing Ao Xianyun and Chu Yang standing together, each of them tall and straight with an unfathomable expression, Diwu Qingrou frowned deeply. "So it is Elder Ao and the two elders Chu." Diwu Qingrou sat in the carriage motionlessly and said in an indifferent voice. Chu Yang's heart trembled. Diwu Qingrou's words were in the wrong order. If he really recognized his identity, he should have said, "So it is Elder Chu and Elder Ao." But now, he put Ao Xianyun in front of him. What did this mean? Chu Yang's face did not change, but he immediately made a decision in his heart. There was no need to wait for the moonlight sword. As long as he left Diwu Qingrou's sight today, the two elders Chu must disappear immediately. Otherwise, it would be too late. "Prime Minister Diwu." The three of them smiled and led the way. "It seems that Sunlight Saber was obtained by the Ao clan." Diwu Qingrou smiled. "Congratulations, Duke Ao. I was just lucky," Ao Xianyun said modestly. "We still have to see if we can decipher its secret. Prime Minister, you also know that this is not an easy task." "Haha, I believe that Ao Gong has the strength." Diwu Qingrou chuckled, but his eyes were fixed on the saber in Ao Xianyun's hand. Diwu Qingrou hated Sunlight Saber, but he was also curious about it. "Please take a look, Prime Minister." Ao Xianyun smiled and generously handed the saber over. Yin Wu Tian stepped forward, took the saber, and handed it over to Diwu Qingrou. Diwu Qingrou casually waved his hand. The saber of a knight beside the carriage broke into two pieces with a schwa sound. "It is indeed a good saber!" Diwu Qingrou exclaimed in admiration. Then, he looked at the sun pattern on the saber and pondered with rapt attention. After a while, Yin Wufu returned the saber. "Three dukes, please take your time. I originally wanted to go to the royal palace to clean up the mess. Then, I will have to pay a visit to Duke Ao." Diwu Qingrou smiled gently. "Duke Chu, may I ask when you will return?" "When it is time to return, we will return." Chu Jiang smiled reservedly. "For now, I will have to trouble Prime Minister for a while." "Ha Zhu! Duke Chu is too polite." Diwu Qingrou smiled. "Whenever Duke Chu is free, I will be waiting for you." At that time, let's drink and chat. How about it? That is my wish. I dare not ask. Chu Yang smiled gracefully. Then I will take my leave first. Then, Ao Xia Yun and Chu Yang made way for Di Wuqing Ro's carriage to pass. Chu Yang acted as if nothing had happened as he walked forward with Ao Xia Yun and Gu Duxing. However, he could faintly feel a meaningful gaze lingering on his back for a long time. This feeling made King of Hell Chu's hair stand on end. Chu Yang had no intention of lingering. Ao Xia Yun was also afraid of long delays. The five of them walked quickly and arrived at Heaven-reaching Tower. After reluctantly saying goodbye, Chu Yang and Gu Duxing returned to their own rooms. We must disappear immediately. Once the door was closed, Chu Yang said with a serious expression. He found us? Gu Duxing asked. Not necessarily. If he was sure, he would have taken him down on the spot, Chu Yang said. However, in these few days, Di Wuqing Ro should be using his own channels to investigate our identities. Then, the surroundings of Heaven-reaching Tower are probably filled with Di Wuqing Ro's scouts. Gu Duxing said. How do we get out? We will leave the same way we came in. Chu Yang came to the window and looked outside through the curtains. He could see far and near, high and low. There were already many people watching this place. These people looked very normal, but there was a special kind of hostility and vigilance that was very strong. If I were Di Wuqing Ro, Chu Yang frowned and said softly, I have not confirmed their identities yet. I can only monitor them for now and wait for news. Plus, these two must think that they have fooled me. So, we need to wait for the news to be confirmed. If these two leave, it will be at night. Gu Duxing whispered. So we don't need to wait until night. Yes, we will leave now, Chu Yang said casually. Do you want to write a letter to Di Wuqing Ro? Gu Duxing pondered for a moment and said, Since Grand Duke Chu is going to disappear, writing a letter to attack him is not a bad idea. It's better not to write. Chu Yang paced 2 steps and said, If we continue to act innocent, it will be easy to anger him. This will not be good for our next plan. Plus, even if Di Wuqing Ro is sure that we are fakes, he cannot be sure that King of Hell Chu is here personally. This? Chu Yang said this and his eyes suddenly lit up. He quickly stopped and clapped his hands. That's right. We should write a letter to Di Wuqing Ro. Gu Duxing fainted. Just now you said not to write a letter to Di Wuqing Ro, but now you agree? Di Wuqing Ro knows that people like me and him will not do such a thing. Because that will make us look like villains who are intoxicated with success and immature. So, he will also think that if I am really King of Hell Chu, I will not leave such a letter. But I did. What do you think he will think? Gu Duxing smiled and said, Of course he will be more suspicious. What I want is for him to be more suspicious. Chu Yang laughed. While Gu Duxing was tidying up, Chu Yang had already written a letter to his heart's content and put it into an empty paper bag. On the outside of the paper bag he wrote, To Prime Minister Diwu. Chu Yang bowed. Then he threw the pen and laughed. He pulled Gu Duxing to the front of the mirror and carefully modified it. After a short while, Chu Yang rolled up a quilt in front of the curtains and placed it on the chair. He folded the quilt so that people who looked through the curtains could vaguely see a figure sitting on the chair, deep in thought. Then, the two of them swaggered out of the door. Di Wuqing Ro arrived at the royal palace and saw the miserable scene. His face was gloomy, and he did not speak for a long time. Are His Majesty and the others okay? Di Wuqing Ro asked softly. His Majesty's injuries are fine, but after this incident, I am afraid His Majesty's feelings towards Prime Minister this, Han Buchu said worriedly. I am afraid he will be even more dissatisfied. This is not a problem, Di Wuqing Ro said indifferently. Let's go see the palace's facilities and see if they can still be used. At this moment, a group of people came rolling in from another road. A fat eunuch rode on a horse and came forward arrogantly. His voice sounded like a mating duck that had been poked in the butt with a stick. By the Emperor's order, we are here to inspect the palace's goods. Diwu Qingro looked at the fat eunuch with a calm expression and said, "Since His Majesty has sent people, let's guard the guards. In that case, we'll leave some soldiers to guard the place and leave the inspection to them." Yin Wu Tian looked coldly at the fat eunuch. He could not help but spit and said, "Eunuchs are good. Sitting on a horse with such a big leg, you don't have to worry about wearing anything." Pff. Han Buchu was flabbergasted and laughed out loud. This eunuch was called Lu Rinjia, and he was the head of the palace's internal affairs. He was sarcastic and unkind. Although he looked a bit fat, he liked to dance. Usually, he enjoyed watching the palace maids dance. Moreover, he thought he was extraordinary. He gave himself a name that was full of dancing flavor, Fantasy Night Phoenix. Han Buchu had once commented on this name, worthy of a eunuch's name. It is very realistic. Phoenixes are a pair of male and female. This Lu Rinjia took it all on himself. He really thought about everything from the front to the back. Han Buchu's words were once regarded by the people in Diwu Qingrou's group as Great Xiao's #1 joke of the year. But because of this Fantasy Night Phoenix hated Han Buchu to the bone. He had once said behind his back, "This bastard Han Buchu thinks his name is very clever. Just look at those 3 words and you will know. Can't say it. He can't even say it when he is a ***. Although this guy was a eunuch, he did not get along with Diwu Qingrou. Therefore, Diwu Qingrou's people did not have a good impression of this guy. With this order, Diwu Qingrou did not even have the mood to talk to him. He just turned around and left. Lu Rinjia snorted and looked at Diwu Qingrou's carriage in the distance. He said, "What's there to be proud of?" Humph. This humph was very coquettish and gentle. It made the surrounding people shiver. Immediately, he waved his fat hand and said in a shrill voice, "Go in." After a while, suddenly, an inhuman scream came from the ruins of the palace. "Diwu Qingrou, you bastard! The palace's treasury is empty. The treasury is empty." Chapter 268. The treasury of the royal palace was empty. This was not just a treasury. Inside, there were all the treasures that the great Zhao kingdom had collected for thousands of years. There were large amounts of strange metals, heavenly medicines, divine weapons, and countless gold and silver. There were even some treasures that were the only ones. This included too many secret martial arts manuals. With so many things, it would take half a day to move them all. It was completely empty. Looking at the treasury of the royal palace, Lu Rinjia wanted to cry but had no tears. His main mission was to come here. But now, looking at the empty space inside, Lu Rinjia broke down. Besides air, there was nothing else. Even the iron frames inside were gone. He had nothing at all. If a mouse went in, it would come out with tears in its eyes. General Manager Lu Rinjia flew into a rage. It was true that there was a battle here last night. It was also true that the royal palace was destroyed last night. It was also true that the dukes of the upper 3 heavens fought here last night. But how many people were there? How could those few people empty this place? What a joke! Who could have done all this? Who in the world could it be? Diwu Qingrou! You are digging up the ancestral graves of the royal family. Lu Rinjia used a heart-piercing, blood-piercing voice to shout out these words that had already reached a certain level of grief and indignation. Only Diwu Qingrou would be able to take advantage of this chaos and loot a burning house without anyone noticing. And he would be able to accomplish all of this. Looking at the empty space here, when the question, "Who did it?" was asked, millions of people would point their fingers at the same person, Diwu Qingrou. King of Helchu was powerful, but this was Great Xiao. Lu Rinjia immediately ran back. Regarding this marriage, he naturally had to report it to the emperor as soon as possible. In the afternoon, Lu Rinjia rode a tall horse with a group of elite soldiers. He carried the emperor's imperial edict and set off for the prime minister's manor. There must be an explanation for this matter. Right now, Diwu Qingro was in his study with an ugly expression. It has been confirmed that the Chu clan of Upper Three Heavens does not have Chu Fei and Chu Nan. This small piece of paper was in Diwu Qingrou's hand. Diwu Qingrou immediately sent out an investigation request after receiving news that the Chu clan had arrived at Heaven-reaching Tower. This was the news he had been waiting for these past few days. It had finally come. Diwu Qingrou's hand clenched tighter and tighter. The next moment, Diwu Qingrou shouted, "Jing Menghan! Here! Yin Wu Tian! Yi! Gather the troops and mobilize all the experts of Golden Horse Riders Department who are revered martial artists and above. Capture the Chu clan of Upper Three Heavens! Yes! Remember! No matter the cost! No matter the sacrifice! Capture them! Yes!" There was a rumbling noise outside the door, followed by the sound of rustling. Then, it disappeared and returned to silence. And now GMO, Grand Duke Ji, and Miao Butong had already arrived at Heaven-reaching Tower. Inside Grand Duke Jiju's room, GMO was ready to return to the Three Heavens with his eldest brother at any time. His mission here had been completed. He only needed to go back to Upper Three Heavens to train. GMO had even planned to go to Tsunglan battlefront to train as soon as he returned to Upper Three Heavens. Using the method that Big Brother Qi taught him, he wanted to increase his strength as fast as he could in the shortest time possible. Wasn't it just breaking through the limit again and again? GMO thought about the wonderful training method Big Brother Chu taught him and his brothers. His heart was filled with confidence. Big Brother said that we must kill our way to Upper Three Heavens. Second Master Ji, you're back? In Jiju's room, when GMO entered, Jiju was reclining on a chair, nodding and dozing off. He had no choice. He woke up too early this morning and disrupted his biological clock. Seeing that his brother had returned, Jiju first waved his hand and chased the few family guards out. Then, he instructed Miao Buguan, who was standing by the door, to close the door. Then, he lazily lifted his chin and looked at his own brother. With a half-dead attitude, he said these words in a strange tone. "Cough, cough, cough, big brother." GMO coughed dryly. He avoided his brother's gaze and laughed dryly. "Big brother, you're becoming more and more brilliant." "Really?" Jiju pouted and used a very funny mouth shape. He used a very fake and self-satisfied appearance to accept his brother's insincere praise. He calmly asked, "Second Master Ji, did you have a good time outside?" "Good. Good, good, it was really good." GMO lowered his head and rolled his eyes. When he raised his head again, his face was full of eagerness. "Big brother, I didn't know before I came out. When I came out, I was shocked." "Oh. What happened?" Jiju looked at his brother with interest. "Tired. A cup of water blinded you." His tone was close to an opera singer's voice. "Big brother, you don't understand how I feel. This time, I have truly experienced the beauty of the earth, the magnificence of the mountains and rivers, the vastness of the sea, and the countless uncanny workmanship. The wind that seizes the fortune of heaven and earth is... Ah! I'm really reluctant to go back and forth." GMO used an exaggerated expression and posture. He used a very aria tone and his eyes were full of fascination as he spoke. "Huh? Is there a how?" Jiju's expression was very strange. Yes. GMO nodded like a chicken pecking rice. "It's really too howling. Burping, I even wrote a poem about it." "You can write poems?" Jiju opened his eyes wide. This time, he was really surprised. "Of course." GMO shook his head and proudly said, "Listen carefully. It rained for 3 days yesterday. Today, I came to the mountain. The stones on the mountain are really hard. The water on the mountain is really sweet. The flowers on the mountain are really fragrant. The girls on the mountain are like fairies. Yesterday, they left the mountain and today, they came to the sea. The sea waves are really high." Stop. Jiju painfully twisted his face. "Second Master Ji, This poem of yours can be passed down through the ages. You should go back to the lower three heavens and recite it to Father. GMO laughed mischievously and said flatteringly, Big brother, the lower three heavens is so fun. Really? Jishu made a pig face. He suddenly lowered his voice and laughed. Is Sunlight Saber also howling? Howl. It was indeed howling. Ga-era-wu. GMO replied happily. Suddenly, he grabbed his thigh and jumped up. The hair on his entire body stood on end. He looked at his elder brother in horror. His eyes froze. Jibutong, who was at the side, almost cried out in shock. Second Master Jiju fiercely slammed the table, unable to restrain his anger. He shouted like a thunderclap. How dare you! GMO sat down on the ground, and cold sweat started to pour out. Granny. Boss. Jimo's lips trembled. You motherfucker! Jiju roared like a thunderbolt. Do you know that this will kill the entire family? Do you know that once your actions are exposed, it will bring disaster to your family? Do you know how stupid you are? Don't you know, your granny? Motherfucker. 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 GMO lowered his head and didn't answer. He didn't move, but his heart was crazily fighting back. My granny is your granny! My granny is your granny! My mom is your mom! Motherfucker! 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 You actually said dog ant? Jiju's real outburst had finally arrived. He raised his leg and kicked GMO, causing him to tumble over. His saliva splattered everywhere. Dog is your aunt? GMO screamed and rolled on the ground. He cursed in his heart. It's your aunt! He screamed. Boss, I was wrong. I changed. I won't do it again. I finally understood the doubts in my heart. It turned out that this fellow had also gone to fight for it last night. But when he heard me call out dog ant, he found out about my identity. Motherfucker, his mouth really needs to be sewn shut. Jiju flew up, grabbed this guy, and beat him up. His hands were like raindrops, punching and kicking. Jimo's body spun back and forth in the air, unable to touch the ground. In the end, he ruthlessly kicked his brother's fleshy buttocks, sending him flying as if he was kicking a carpet. Then, before he could fly as high as he could, he slapped his brother on the ground with a loud bang. Only then did Jiju stop. Tell me. What should we do? Jiju, who had finally finished venting, turned back and sat on the chair. His whole body was in a tie shape as he said lazily. Oh, GMO, who had been screaming miserably all this time, was extremely proud of himself in his heart. My special skills during this period of time aren't just for show. Boss beating me like this is just like scratching an itch. When he heard Jiju's words, he couldn't help but ask. What do you mean? Bichang is dead. Don't play dumb with me. Jiju slammed the table. I know I didn't hurt you. You dared to call yourself old in front of me? GMO shrieked. Suddenly he was filled with righteous indignation, and jumped 3 feet high. You motherfucker, Jiju! You call yourself old in front of me? Miao Butong closed his eyes, unable to bear the sight. His face was twisted and convulsed. What kind of brothers are these? In an instant, Jiju's anger, which had just subsided, flared up again. He jumped up. Immediately after, Miao Butong saw the 2 brothers, who shared the same father and mother, cursing each other angrily. Then they wrestled on the ground. Bang, bang, bang! Puff, puff, puff! Bang, bang, bang! You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.